Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 16 of What If the Transformers Crash Landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. School Festival Declaration. Yes, it is true that the invasion of the Chinese Federation, as well as the terrorist activities of the Black Knights and these Autobot beings have disrupted our society. But that is a completely separate issue. The fact remains that you both have been absent from class far too often. I don't care how good your grades are, or that you're Princess Euphemia's knight, if you don't improve, you will repeat this year. This was just one of the many rantings both Lelouch and Suzaku had to endure from one of their teachers as they had to take multiple late-night lessons in order to make up for their missed classes. And while they worked, each had their own separate thoughts about the other and the situations surrounding them. I had hoped Yuffie would pull Lelouch and Nunnally out by now. Suzaku thought as he cast a concerning glance towards Lelouch. But with all the political fallout from that whole mess at Kyushu, I guess she's got a busy schedule. But no matter what, I will protect those two. Lelouch, meanwhile, cast a glance at Suzaku. He and Dreadwing were both willing to work alongside us to stop Sawazaki, meaning not only can Suzaku be saved, perhaps even Dreadwing can become an ally, at least based on what Optimus told me about him. I'll have to tell Suzaku my identity soon though, but first, I have to get Nunnally to the Ark. The school festival is tomorrow. The second it's done, she, Rai, Sayoko, and Bumblebee along with myself will be moving to the Ark indefinitely. The Ark. Support for us has really swelled. Ogi reported as he, Tamaki, Colin, and Rai, along with RC, Cliffjumper, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, and Ironhide stood in one of the many hallways of the Ark. Not only is virtually every 11 in support of us, most of the Britannians in the Tokyo settlement are protesting against the current occupation. Looks like the Brits are starting to lose control. Serves them right. Tamaki smirked. Don't get too cocky. Ironhide stated. Britannia might step up their game soon, not to mention the Decepticons are still a major wildcard. What about the whole idea of getting Britannian royals like Euphemia on our side? Bulkhead asked. I mean, we did talk about that sort of thing. Plus, with our goal to make Japan independent, they could help us out with all the political stuff. Well, given what happened to Lelouch and Nunnally, just because he spoke out against his dad when his mom was killed, I don't think the Emperor's gonna be too happy about one of his other kids directly challenging his authority. Colin pointed out. Colin's right. We gotta be prepared for the worst-case scenario. RC agreed. What exactly is the worst-case scenario? Rai asked. I mean, we did talk about the Khans and Britannia turning on each other, but I think that can actually help us even more. Yeah, if they're too busy fighting each other, it'll make it easier for us to slip in a grenade here and there and mess with them. Wheeljack smirked. And what about all the collateral damage that could result from that? Ironhide questioned. That's also something we gotta take into consideration. Cliffjumper seemed to agree. If and when Britannia and the Decepticons duke it out, there's gonna be a lot of innocent people caught in the crossfire. Tamaki gave a sigh as he leaned against the wall. Who would have thought leading a revolution could be so complicated? What did you expect? RC asked skeptically. Just shoot and the whole thing crumbles down. That's not how reality works. Yeah, well, beats not doing anything at all. Tamaki stated. If I didn't throw in with you guys, I'd probably be hooked on Refrain right now. That got Oji's attention as he instantly thought of the amnesiac Valletta still living at his place. Refrain might bring her memory back, but would she help us? She was a pureblood but still. Ogi. Colin brought him out of his thoughts. Something on your mind? Yeah. Any of you know where Ratchet is? I need to ask him something. Ogi responded. He's with Optimus, and the rest of the Brain Squad in the Ark's laboratory. Cliffjumper answered. Thanks. Ogi was about to walk away. Hang on, I can give you a lift. Ironhide said as he transformed, allowing Ogi to step inside as he drove down the hallway. Shirley sat on a large Autobot table as she saw Ratchet, Fix-It, and Rakshata making final adjustments on the tool they were about to give the Autobot leader that stood waiting patiently. By the time they were done, they stood back to allow the tool to come into view. It was a long, two-handed, double-bladed axe. The shaft was long, about 2/3 in length compared to the size of Optimus himself, while the axe blades on each end were a bright red color. the blades were curved, almost similar in style to a medieval axe. "And it is finished," Rakshata said with her casual smile. "I must admit, I've never really tried my hand at an axe before. I'd say it came out nicely. Optimus, I know this may never replace the one you lost on Cybertron," Ratchet told his friend and leader. "But this axe has been constructed through the same method that Britannia has used for those master vibration swords placed on the Lancelot and other nightmares, with our own improvements. It also has its own power supply of synthetic energon. Fix-It put in, making it much more powerful than anything Britannia can create. And since it's a simple tool and nothing complex like nightmares, the power supply should not drain too quickly. Thank you, Ratchet, Fix-It, Rakshata," Optimus said as he picked up his new axe and brandished it. "This will most certainly do." Shirley couldn't help but look at Optimus with awe. Though she already knew how amazing he was before, seeing him wield something like an axe only made him look even more incredible. Though she did find the idea of him using an axe to be strange, as she always pegged him as the type to use a sword, but he still looked incredible all the same. Soon, however, Ironhide's vehicle mode drove into the lab before he came to a stop, allowing Ogi to step out before the Autobot veteran transformed. "Ogi, Ironhide," Shirley greeted as Ratchet helped her down onto the floor. "Look what Ratchet and the others made for Optimus." Ogi looked in awe at the sight of the axe, while Ironhide simply smirked and gave a whistle. "Can't wait to see what that thing can do." "It looks great." Ogi soon got over his awe as he addressed the Autobot medic. "Hey Ratchet, if someone has amnesia, could it be possible that Refrain could help restore their memories?" That took most of the group by surprise, though Ironhide already had an idea who he was referring to and looked with concern. Rakshata, however, looked rather intrigued. "Refrain used as a treatment for amnesia." She mused aloud. "I never really did consider that. Why do you ask?" Well," Ogi tried to find the right way to say it. "This wouldn't have anything to do with the pureblood that's staying with you, would it?" Ironhide questioned knowingly. Ogi sighed. "Yeah, she still doesn't remember anything," Shirley asked, though at the same time, she was also a bit concerned about that woman's memories being restored, as she did almost get Lelouch killed. "Not yet, no," Ogi confirmed. "Why would you want her memories restored?" Ratchet questioned. "I understand there are some Britannians willing to work with us, but she is a pureblood, and their records seem to indicate they support all the racial and radical steps Britannia has taken over the years of their supremacy. Maybe, but that doesn't mean she'd be loyal to the Decepticons." Ogi began. "You guys all talked about how they and Britannia are gonna fight each other soon. Not to mention, we actually have a Britannian prince leading us, albeit exiled, but still. And we have talked about getting Euphemia's support. Lelouch also did say he was bringing Nunnally to the Ark tomorrow." Shirley put in. "Yeah, that's 3 Britannian royals on our side." Ogi continued. "There really isn't much she can do right now the way she is. But, if she regains her memories as a soldier, maybe, she could become an ally. I have gone through Valletta News combat records," Fix-It said. "She's a skilled soldier and nightmare pilot, though not on the same league as Colin or Rye. She was good enough to be appointed as Knight of Britannia. Though I can't tell as to whether or not that's a testament to her skill, or her support on Britannia's supremacist views." "All are valid arguments," Optimus said. "But Ogi, even if we could consider this woman to be a potential ally, I would advise against the use of Refrain to restore her memories. Our tests have shown the drug to be unstable and addictive. It could cause more damage to her psyche. I am afraid that such a risk would be too great." "Yeah, I had a feeling. Just wanted to run it by you guys," Ogi said. "But if she did regain her memories, could she join us?" Shirley asked, more so out of curiosity. If Valletta did join them, Shirley could be supportive, if the woman would be willing to change, but if not, she wasn't really someone she'd lose sleep over given what she tried to pull at Port Yokosuka, not to mention the mess in Shinjuku. "Personally, I doubt it," Ratchet said. "She is a pureblood, and even if we have those of the royal family on our side, they could be considered enemies of the Emperor, and they seem to be the most loyal to him." "That's true." Ironhide seemed to agree. "Kinda like what's going on with Suzaku. If she's willing to change and accept responsibility for all she did, then great. If not, then she'll just be another enemy." "All right, I understand," Ogi said with some reluctance in his voice. Though he did trust Optimus and the others' judgment, there was a small part of him that was hoping she would join them if her memories were restored. The next morning, Ashford Academy. Fireworks and confetti cannons were fired into the air as the school festival was only seconds away from opening. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for waiting," Millie announced from the control booth, her voice echoing through the entire campus. The Ashford Academy School Festival, which is the most open event in the Tokyo settlement, is about to start. It will begin at the sound of this voice. Meow. Nunnally's cat impression was heard through the speakers, signaling the start of the festival. Already it was in an uproar. It had everything from food booths, costumes, art stands, they even gave out pictures of the Autobots. Be it either drawings from the art club, or blurry photos taken to add a mystery element to it. One would think such a thing was controversial, but given that 2 Autobots saved the entire campus from a terrorist, it was little wonder the students at the school endeared them so, not to mention theirs, as well as the Black Knights and Knights of the Round. Battle against the Chinese Federation in Kyushu was broadcasted across the country. It was rather easy to see why nearly everyone in Ashford Academy viewed them as heroes. "Looks like the party's getting started," Cliffjumper said as he, RC, and Bumblebee were parked in their vehicle modes in the closed storage garage. Given the absence of the Ganymede, it made it easier to store the 3 disguised Autobots inside. Even though it was closed shut, all 3 of them could hear the festivities outside. "Sucks that we gotta stay in here. You wanna cause an uproar? Maybe start a battlefield here?" RC asked her partner. "You know what would happen if the cons found us. Not to mention 3 Knights of the Round are still here, along with Suzaku." Bumblebee pointed out. I know, but we're celebrities," Cliffjumper replied. "It would be nice to get cheers thrown our way instead of explosives." "We're just gonna have to deal," RC commented with a sigh. "Why do I have a feeling this festival's gonna be a long one?" At the same time, Lelouch stood on the roof of the building, overlooking the festival as he was on the phone with Diethard discussing matters regarding their next move. "That's what I thought," Lelouch said. "So even Sawazaki and the others turned out to be useful. We've covered all the tasks at hand. Yes, we gathered all the sector data on the emergency countermeasures they left behind," Diethard reported. However, Lelouch observed a news crew arrive on campus. The press. He ducked his head so they would not see him as he continued to listen to Diethard's report. "Also, thanks to the information you procured from Cornelia some time ago, we've not only identified the solar panels and energy storage sites, but even a large number of critical targets that we can hit all at once if the enemy forces are spread thin enough." "And what are the others up to?" Lelouch asked. "Optimus is working with Toto and Kitase on how we can hit those crucial targets I mentioned," Diethard replied. "Wheeljack and Ironhide are working with Kyoto on supplying our nightmare forces with those high-heat magnesium rounds you recommended. Bulkhead is helping with the transportation of recently discovered energon deposits as well other supplies. Ratchet, Fix-It, and Rockshot are working with the rest of the science division on last-minute modifications to the Gawain as well as how we can use the immobilizer and polarity gauntlet." "Anything in regard to the synthetic energon?" Lelouch asked. "Nothing of substantial to note," Diethard answered. "According to Ratchet, the formula still remains incomplete." "Understood." Lelouch nodded. "Oh, and I know we're late in reporting this to you, but with the operation of the Zero Squad, there's trouble." The former prince turned around in surprise to see Millie running toward him, having just arrived on the roof. "There's huge trouble. I gotta go." He quickly hung up. "What are you doing goofing off like that?" Millie questioned as she pulled Lelouch through the festival attractions. "You're the festival chairman. But everything is running fine. There's no problem," Lelouch told her. "Besides, you're taking charge of that part, right?" Lelouch asked, referring to the massive pizza oven that was built recently on the school's grounds. "It was 2 meters wide up till last year, and suddenly you declared we had to have a 12-meter pizza." "Uh-huh," Millie nodded. "Isn't it great? It's gonna be the largest one of its kind in the world." "Just the oven and ingredients are causing an uproar," Lelouch said. "And now there's a TV crew running around campus. You know we can't show our faces. We got 3 Knights of the Round attending, not to mention Suzaku's in charge of making the pizza, so of course there's gonna be TV crew." Millie replied. "You can run things from the control booth." "Okay. President's orders." Alright, stop right there. Rivals told Gino, who was at the forklift, dropping off a box of supplies at the oven. Rivals. We're all set on this end. Nina reported as she and Anya came up. Wow, someone's in a sunny mood. Rivals took note of his classmate's cheery demeanor. Something good happened. Yeah, you could say that. Nina smiled while Anya continued to work on her phone. Looks like we got everything we need. Monica said as she and Shirley looked over a clipboard. Geez, a 12-meter pizza. Does Millie always go overboard like this? You have no idea. Shirley rolled her eyes with a playful grin. You know, if we have any leftovers, maybe we could take some for the Autobots. I mean, this is big enough even for them. Oh wait, that's right, they don't eat the food the way we do. It could still be nice, though. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the settlement, Ogie walked through the streets with the amnesiac Valletta, who was currently wearing a casual dress and jacket with a sun hat. I figured some fresh air could probably do you some good, Chigusa. Ogie said, referring the woman by the name he gave her. I don't know if it'll help with your memories, but it beats staying in my apartment 24/7. I do appreciate it. Chigusa smiled. And I mean it, thanks so much for everything. Ogie smiled somewhat nervously. Well, I didn't really do all that much. You may as well have saved my life bringing me into your home. So, let me thank you, Ogie. She maintained her innocent smile. Well, in that case, you're welcome. Ogie smiled back. Despite his smile, however, his thoughts were somewhat conflicted. What am I even doing? If does bring her memory back, it's like what Optimus and the others said, we have no guarantee she could become an ally. Not to mention she's seen Zero's face, that could put everyone in jeopardy. I can't just kill her. The pair happened to pass by the gate to Ashford Academy, and Ogie couldn't help but stop. Here we are. Is something wrong? Chigusa asked him. No, I used to be a schoolteacher, so I was feeling a little nostalgic. Ogie said as he had a reminiscent smile. Why did you stop teaching? Chigusa asked. Well, with the occupation, me and all other 11s were stripped of our old jobs and everything, Ogie answered. And, my best friend since we were little kids, passed away shortly after. But you could say that me, and several other good friends of mine, are kinda helping to fulfill his last wish. Chigusa looked toward him with sympathy, as despite her innocent exterior, she was able to find the residual sadness in his voice, telling her that he still clearly misses his friend and feels the pain. But, when she looked at the school and saw there was a festival going on, an idea came to her that might cheer him up. She grabbed his arm with an eager smile. Let's go in. That took him by surprise. No, I can't go into a Britannian school. I'm an 11. Suddenly, multiple students, including Gino, all came outside to greet the pair. Who cares about that stuff? He said as he casually put his arm around Ogie in a friendly manner. It's a festival, so let's go have some fun. The students quickly pulled the pair inside the campus grounds to enjoy the festival. However, not long after they went inside, the vehicle modes of Knockout and Breakdown came to a stop just outside the main entrance. You gotta give the humans credit, they know how to have a good time. Knockout commented as he and his partner remained in their disguises. Why are we here again? Breakdown asked. This place seems too noisy for my taste. This coming from a lug who likes to smash stuff. Knockout joked. But, Megatron told us to keep an eye on Kururugi and see what he's been up to. Can't he just ask Soundwave to do that? I mean, it is his job. Breakdown stated. I asked that too, but apparently Soundwave is helping the boss out with something else, so we're stuck here. Knockout commented as he looked inside the school to see their activities, including pictures being drawn by the art club. But those kids better not get any funny ideas about drawing on me. Meanwhile, inside the school's kitchen, Suzaku was quickly working on cutting up the last of the ingredients needed for the massive pizza. He heard the door open from behind, but he didn't need to turn around to see who it was. That's a relief, Suzaku said, much to the surprise of Ryan Collin, the former holding onto the latter's arm as she held onto a concealed knife in her pocket. I thought you two were never going to come back to school. It's on purpose, Collin asked, as she and Rai looked in surprise. Why didn't you tell Megatron? Or Cornelia about us? Suzaku sighed as he turned around to face them. Maybe because you two were right. Megaron wasn't the leader I thought he was. Finally figured that out, huh? Rai questioned in minor sarcasm. Better late than never, I guess. You know, you never did tell me why you joined the Black Knights, Rai. Suzaku told him. I already heard from Colin her reason for fighting with the Autobots, but not you. Rai gave a sigh of his own. To be honest Suzaku, I'm not sure you'd understand even if I did tell you. That caused Suzaku to look in confusion. But why I didn't tell you before, when I found out you were working with the Decepticons, along with what happened to your father, and yes, I know about him, it made me worried what you would do, to our friends, even those not in the Black Knights. That took Suzaku by surprise. Do you really think I would actually try to hurt our friends? Well, you teaming up with Arachnid that one time didn't help. Colin stated, causing Suzaku to wince. I really don't know Suzaku. Rai said. I don't know what you do. And that scares me. I want to believe there's good in Yo, I really do. But so long as you're with the Decepticons, I'm not sure if I can ever trust you. Suzaku looked hurt by that statement. You don't trust me. No, I'm sorry but, I can't. Rai said. At least, not until I hear you say that you were wrong. You may have just said you might have been wrong in trusting Megatron, but we need to hear the rest of it. Rai said, referring to himself and Colin. You were wrong about what you did to your father, you were wrong about using the military as an excuse to wipe blood off your hands, you were wrong to try and abandon us. I would never abandon, Suzaku tried to say. Oh please. Colin rolled her eyes. You said you joined the military to try and change Britannia, but you can't change anything if you're dead. You think you'd make yourself a martyr if you died. You're an 11 in their eyes, they won't care. You'd abandon all your so-called friends just to redeem yourself. That's not redemption Suzaku, it's just you being a coward. Suzaku wasn't all that surprised to hear Colin say that. Maybe, you're right. That took both Colin and Rai by surprise. I can't change the system if I'm dead. Maybe I couldn't change it myself to begin with. But, there are those that can, and those that want Britannia to change. Euphemia even told me she wants Britannia to change. In fact, she said she'd willingly work with you, and the Autobots to do it. Colin and Rai looked towards each other, though given what they heard from Lelouch about Euphemia, it wasn't that surprising to learn that she'd actually want to help them. But to actually hear it, it almost felt shocking to them. Maybe I was wrong about trusting Megatron. Suzaku admitted. But I wasn't wrong about Britannia having the ability to change. So, when you two can, please tell Zero and Optimus that Princess Euphemia wants to work with them. Before either Colin or Rai could respond however, the door opened once more and Lelouch walked into the kitchen. There you guys are, I was looking for you. Lelouch said. Oh, Lelouch. Rai acknowledged as Suzaku walked towards them. Guys, what we were talking about has nothing to do with school, okay? Suzaku gave them a subtle hint. Yeah, we get it. Colin glared slightly in his direction. Though Lelouch had a good idea what they were probably talking about in here, now was not the time to get into any of that. Rai, Shirley says she needs your help with something. Alright, no problem. Rai nodded as Lelouch turned to the redhead. Colin, if you don't mind either, could you check in with your class? He asked her. They seemed to be a bit short-handed. Sure, I don't mind. I do mind. Colin gave a fake monster roar as she popped out of the ground in her class, fake graveyard, wearing a cheesy monster outfit. Her surprise managed to scare a couple students who ran away screaming. This thing actually scares them. Colin questioned before getting angry. Oh, I'm gonna get Lelouch for this. He should have told me I had to be part of the horror house. Just because he's Zero, doesn't mean he can make me do this kind of crap. She lowered herself back into her spot. I swear, if he tells Cliffjumper or RC about this, I'm gonna kick his ass. She looked on the built-in radar screen to see two people approaching. Oh great, here comes another couple. Probably Gino with some random girl. Colin scowled, sweating up a storm. Why couldn't they make this whole thing mechanical? They got this damn screen. It's sweltering inside of here, it's like those early Glasgows. Come on, move your ass. Hurry. She popped up to scare the couple. Move your ass. However, she did not expect to see Ogi, as well as Chigusa, there. The later hiding behind the former in a startle, who appeared to be startled himself. Ogi. Ogi himself looked in surprise to see Colin. You're back safe. Fortunately, yes. Rai walked outside, slightly away from all the attractions, looking for Shirley, but he was quick to spot her hiding behind a tree near the entrance. Shirley. He called to her as he tried to get close, but before he could say anything else. SSSH. She put a finger in front of her mouth, motioning to be quiet as she spoke in a whisper. Look out the entrance. Rai looked a bit confused as he looked in the direction she was looking at, spotting two familiar vehicle modes just outside the main gate. Aren't those two Decepticons? Yeah, Knockout and Breakdown. Rai pulled Shirley away so that they could speak without either of the cons catching on. Colin and I already spotted them earlier. We called Optimus and told Lelouch as soon as we did. It doesn't look like they're causing trouble, probably here to keep an eye on Suzaku and or Gino and the others. But Bumblebee, RC, and Cliffjumper are still on standby just in case. Shirley gave a sigh of relief. That's good. Last thing I want is for those two to mess with all this. We put so much hard work into the festival. I know it's not as important as what we do with the Autobots, but still. I get, and I think we're fine. Rai assured. The Decepticons are evil, but I don't think they're gonna blow their cover just to ruin a school festival, especially with a news crew here. He smirked. But, seeing how close they are to the pizza over, I wouldn't mind some extra sauce spilling over and ruining Knockout's paint job. Shirley giggled at the thought of that. It's good to see you smile, Rai. She told him sincerely. I know it hasn't been easy with, well, your memories and. Ray's smile faded slightly. I get it. And, to be frank, I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna get over any of that. I know it's not all my fault, but, sometimes I can still see them. Shirley looked in sympathy as she put a hand on his shoulder. Rai, she tried to say something comforting, but he wasn't quite done yet. But that makes me all the more determined, to protect what I have now. Rai said with a serious face. I've got so many more friends. I got my partner Bulkhead, and the other wreckers in the Black Knights. I got Lelouch, even Nunnally, and I got you. He looked toward Shirley with a smile. Shirley, no matter what, I will protect you. You can count on that. Shirley looked into his eyes and saw how dead serious he was. However, they both realized just how close their faces were to each other, causing each of their cheeks to turn red before they both looked away with blushes on their face. Thanks Rai, Shirley rubbed the back of her neck. Yeah, no problem, Rai was just as flustered as she was. However, as he looked the other way, he saw a familiar green-haired girl in an Ashford school uniform walking through the festival. Uh-oh. What is? Shirley turned around to see the individual in question that Rai had also seen. Oh scrap. Meanwhile, Cecile Crumey, who was also attending the festival along with a trio of Camelot agents, was at a whack-a-mole game where students would poke their heads out for the person to try and bop with a toy hammer. However, she was more focused on the blonde-haired one with glasses in the middle. School festivals are such fun. I feel so free. Cecile actually laughed as she continued to bonk the blonde guy in the middle, completely ignoring the others. The one she keeps whacking, doesn't he look like Lloyd? One agent asked his coworker in a whisper. No great wonder. The other one replied. Working under that guy must really drive her out of her mind. At the same time, Lelouch sat on a bench, while also on the phone, speaking with several other clubs and students that were working with the festival. Right, the pizza's starting later. He said before hanging up with a sigh. Definitely don't have time to be doing this. The phone rang yet again, and he was quick to answer. Yes. Oh, the drama club. I've spoken to the film club about it. He hung up yet again. How can I plan my revolution? Suddenly, a toy hammer had bonked him on the head. I'm sorry. Cecile ran up to him as she caught the hammer that flew back to her. The handle just broke in two. Lelouch recognized her as a soldier Suzaku worked with. First two Decepticons are here, now a soldier. At a school festival. He thought in a mix of sarcasm and minor disgust. How peaceful the world is. Say, aren't you Suzaku's friend? Cecile asked, recognizing Lelouch as well. However, before he could answer, someone else had got his attention from behind. Hey you, boy, where am I supposed to go to eat the biggest pizza in the world? Lelouch turned around to face CC, who was currently clad in an Ashford school uniform. Hey, Sarah, Lelouch. Rai quickly came in from behind CC, putting a hand on her shoulder, with Shirley right behind him. "Can we talk to you guys? You know, in private." He gave a subtle glare at the immortal girl before pulling her away. Meanwhile, at the Tokyo Settlement's royal palace, Cornelia was having a discussion with Schneisel, Dreadwing, Starscream, as well as Nonette, Darlton, and Guilford. "Thank you again for your assistance in the Kyushu affair, Dreadwing. It was much appreciated," Schneisel told the Seeker. "I only sought to aid Suzaku, nothing more." Dreadwing responded, though it wasn't clear on his face. Dreadwing did not trust Schneisel in the slightest. It was easy for him to figure out that he had likely used Suzaku and the Knights of the Round as a distraction in that last battle. Even though he was Euphemia's brother, there was something about Schneisel that put Dreadwing on edge. Starscream rolled his eyes. "Your affiliation with that waste of space continues to grate on my nerves, Dreadwing." "To whom are you referring to, Starscream?" Nonette glared at the Decepticon commander along with Dreadwing. "Suzaku or Princess Euphemia?" "Well, I was speaking of Kururugi, but you could consider the same for Euphemia as well," Starscream stated, resulting in glares from virtually everyone, especially Cornelia. "Oh, don't give me that, it's the truth. Cornelia here is a warrior, albeit a lesser one compared to the likes of myself and my soldiers, but she is still capable of putting up something of a fight." Cornelia's fists clenched at that, while Guilford and Darlton simply glared. "And Schneisel here has proven to be a sound strategist, perhaps the best this empire has to offer, which isn't saying much considering all the squabbling it has been doing. But Euphemia is neither. She can't fight, nor can she come up with even a halfway decent strategy. Honestly, it's a wonder, Daddy Dearest hasn't thrown her away like he did with those two other weaklings, Lelouch and Nunnally." "You listen to me, Starscream," Cornelia exclaimed, having enough of this. "What goes on with my family is none of your concern. When your petty infighting and posturing interferes with the elimination of our enemies, it most certainly is my concern." Starscream replied. "Speaking of posturing, would you care to explain your actions at the prison block recently?" Darlton questioned. "You and your fellow Decepticons choose to reveal yourselves on national television." Guilford stated as well. "Because of that, protests have erupted all across the area. Protests have been present since the Black Knights and Autobots made their debut months ago." Starscream replied. "If you are incapable of managing your own people, it's no wonder our enemies thwart you at every turn." "How dare you!" Cornelia was ready to shout, but Schneisel quickly stepped in. "That's quite enough." The prince spoke in a calm and rational tone. "Commander Starscream, I can understand why you must feel so frustrated with our side. It's the unfortunate nature of our family and government, I'm afraid. Because Britannia has been divided for many years, even among the royal family, it's been incredibly difficult for us to yield any promising results." He then turned to his sister and her knights when it looked like they were about to protest. "Which is why I feel we should gather all those we can trust so that we can act accordingly without dealing with the infighting from those we cannot trust. Do you happen to know anyone who falls under that category, Your Majesty?" Nonette asked. "Because certain events, such as Shikini Island, have shown that you haven't really communicated with us in that regard." "I agree." Dreadwing also spoke. "In order to establish trust, you must first acquire proper communication in order for an operation to run smoothly." "And I agree most assuredly," Schneisel assured. "I apologize for my actions if they felt you were unable to trust me. I make no excuse." Nonette and Dreadwing each shared somewhat questionable expressions before the Knight of Nine spoke. "Well, maybe you can." However, before anything else could be said, a projectile was quickly thrown in her direction. Nonette was quick to catch it to reveal it to be a fancy black and red dagger. Most of the group looked in surprise, but Nonette's eyes narrowed as she knew exactly who this dagger belonged to. What do people value most? All eyes turned to a man who had walked onto the scene. He had purple eyes, auburn hair worn in a mullet-like style. He wore a white uniform with an orange robe around his person. Answer: their own lives. Luciano Bradley. Nonette glared, along with Cornelia. What is he doing here? Cornelia glared at the man in question while her knights looked more than a little shocked. Who is this? Starscream questioned. Oh, pardon me, where are my manners? The man made a mocking bow. I am Sir Luciano Bradley, the Knight of 10, otherwise known as the homicide genius, and even the vampire of Britannia. Another knight of the round. Dreadwing mused, as he instantly did not like this man. Just one look in his eyes was enough for Dreadwing's stomach, or the Cybertronian equivalent of it, to turn. So, you two are some of the big bad Decepticons, eh? Luciano spoke casually. Tell me, does your kind bleed? You'd better watch your tone. Starscream advised, stepping closer to the man. Knight of the round or not, you are merely a human. And I've been dealing with more than enough of those. Don't lump us in with those 11s or anyone else like that. A woman arrived right behind Bradley. She had dark skin, black hair tied back in a braided ponytail, with green eyes. She also wore a white suit with a dark blue robe over it. Were a breed above the rest. Dorothea Ernst. Guilford looked in surprise. The Knight of Four, Darlton seemed just as shocked as his comrade. I see you've arrived as well, Lady Ernst. Nonette greeted coldly. Indeed. And I must ask, aren't you ashamed? Dorothea spoke to Nonette directly. You're a Knight of the Round, yet you've not scored one single victory against your enemies. If it were up to me, I'd have you stripped of your rank for failure. Perhaps you underestimate them. Nonette glared. As usual, your ego second to only this bloodthirsty maniac. She gestured to Bradley. Bradley only smiled even more sadistically. Oh, you wanna try saying that to my face, little Knight of Nine? However, Dreadwing promptly stepped in front to block both Bradley and Dorothea from advancing any further. You should treat your colleague with more respect. Is that some sort of threat, Decepticon? Dorothea glared. Maybe it is. Bradley only looked more intrigued. How's about we fetch our nightmares and test our upgrades on him? That is enough. Cease this squabbling. A tall man, perhaps the most imposing human present, had revealed himself. He wore a white suit with a white robe over it. He had lightly tanned skin with dark blue hair, but what stood out the most was that his left eye appeared to be sewn shut. Though Dreadwing and Starscream didn't recognize this human, virtually all the other humans present did, as they could only look in surprise. Bismarck Waldstein, the Knight of One, Cornelia stuttered. Why are you here? A foolish question, Viceroy Cornelia. The leader and strongest of the Knights of the Round spoke. The activity of the Black Knights and the Autobots have reached virtually all corners of the globe. It is not just Area 11, but virtually all Britannian-occupied areas. If this situation is not quelled quickly enough, the result could be catastrophic for our empire. Sir Waldstein, Sir Bradley, and Lady Ernst, them alongside with Lady Enneagram, Sir Weinberg, Lady Alstrheim, and Lady Kruszewski, Guilford began to list as though he was feeling overwhelmed. All 7 Knights of the Round are together in Area 11. Darlton finished. It was understandable that they were surprised, for all the Knights of Round to come together for a single operation was so rare, it was almost unheard of. Welcome, all of you. Schneisel greeted the 3 newly arrived knights professionally. I'm sure your help will be greatly appreciated. Well, considering we pulled in my Valkyrie squadron as well, not to mention all the other hundreds of units we brought in from other Britannian areas, I would certainly hope so. Luciano said causally. You pulled in soldiers from other areas for this? Cornelia questioned in surprise. Of course, Dorothea said as though it were obvious. As Bismarck said, this isn't just about Area 11, it's about the grip our empire has in all our territories. We need to set an example, to show the world that not even Zero or these foolish Autobots will stand in our way. My father sent you? Cornelia asked. Indeed. Bismarck confirmed. Starscream gave something of an amused scoff. Finally, that human actually does something useful. Ooh, takes a lot of nerve to insult the Emperor in front of 4 of his best pilots. Luciano said, brandishing more of his knives. Perhaps you'd like to say that again. It seems you do not know who I am. I am Commander Starscream, second in command of the Decepticons. Humble servant to Lord Megatron. The Seeker announced dramatically. And where is your leader? Dorothea questioned. Occupied, I am afraid. Dreadwing answered. Well, I trust you'll be able to handle this situation to the best of your abilities. Schneisel told the knights. I must be off. Commander Starscream, there is something I would like to discuss with you. Very well. Starscream walked off to follow the prince, leaving Cornelia and her knights, as well as Nonette to address Bismarck, Bradley and Dorothea. As they did, Dreadwing cast a suspicious glance towards Starscream and Schneisel as they walked off. What are those two planning? Flashback. Bismarck Waldstein kneeled in the throne room in front of Charles Z. Britannia, as they were the only two occupants in these large chambers. You are sending the remaining Knights of the Round, as well as other areas, military forces. Bismarck asked his emperor. You disapprove, Knight of One? Charles questioned. No, it just seems rather overkill. Bismarck commented. I understand how much of a threat the Autobots and Black Knights are, but this will convince Megatron that I am taking this matter seriously, in order to keep his attention focused on Japan. Charles explained. I've already given orders to Dorothy to bring Kaiserin to me, as well as Marianne to capture CC. If I may, Your Highness, perhaps it was a mistake to send Nonette for the acquisition of Kaiserin. Bismarck said. Perhaps. Charles replied. I had hoped that her loyalty to him would diminish these past 7 years, but it seems I was mistaken. So that job now falls to Dorothea, whom not even Nonette can best in battle. She is the Knight of Four of a reason. I understand, Bismarck said, still bowing. And as well, I have a special assignment for you, Bismarck. Charles told him. You want me to capture Zero, I mean Lelouch, for you? The Knight of One asked. Yes, but that is only part of it. Charles began. Your first priority, before you bring Lelouch to me, is to terminate Optimus Prime. Bismarck looked toward Charles in surprise as the Emperor continued. It seems Prime's influence has spread to Lelouch, making that boy forget his roots. It's time to remind him who he truly belongs to. Kill that machine that has stolen my son for me, then bring Lelouch to me. It's time to remind that boy that I am his father, not Prime. End flashback. A ground bridge portal opened up in what appeared to be a stripped mine, while in actuality, this was the same spot where Megatron had found his deposit of dark energon, which had been converted into an off-site laboratory for Shockwave. Megatron himself stepped out of the portal, followed by Soundwave, and right behind him was VV, who was being escorted by the Mini-Con Frenzy to make sure he didn't try anything. The laboratory seemed rather basic, with a few consoles and machines built into the walls, which was to be unexpected for a lab that was only recently constructed. The only occupants there besides Shockwave himself were a pair of Viacon guards, and a group of human scientists from Code R, one of which was Joseph Finette. Among the devices in the laboratory that VV observed were 2 tanks filled with a special kind of fluid. Inside one of the tanks contained Jeremiah Gottwald, who had already been outfitted with a number of Cybertronian implants for cybernetic prosthetics. In the other, contained the mutilated body of Mao. Most of his body had already been dissected and drained. The only real parts of him that remained was his head, attached to his nervous system that had been removed from the rest of his body, wires connecting directly into his brain and central nervous stem. Shockwave, who continued to work at his console at the end of the laboratory, noticed his leader's presence. Lord Megatron. Shockwave, I see you've been keeping busy. Megatron acknowledged. Indeed. Shockwave nodded in confirmation. The data we've extracted from VV has helped to fill in many gaps into my study of the Geass element. That, along with my study of the subject named Mao, has helped me to extract the energy itself directly from Mao's organic cerebral system. Shockwave then led Megatron to a table that contained 3 vials of a red liquid. From there, I have been able to concentrate the energy into a liquid form, making it easier to study. Very impressive, my most prized engineer. Megatron approved. However, this is the among most I've been able to accomplish. Shockwave explained. Breaking down the Geass energy into its most basic elements has proven to be difficult, taken into account the fact that the elements that comprise the energy are unlike anything I've seen so far. Simply put, I have no idea what makes up this power. Understandable. Megatron seemed to get it. If not even Victor and his dear brother, who spent decades studying this in secret, could understand its origin, it only makes sense you would have some form of trouble as well. Megatron cast a glare in VV's direction. He's talking about you. Frenzy snickered to the immortal boy. Yes, I heard him. VV said in a low growl. However, the knowledge we extracted from VV has shown that these thought elevators could be the key to understanding its origin. Shockwave began as he brought up several images of multiple thought elevators on the screen above them. However, the one in Area 11 has been destroyed by Optimus Prime, and the remaining 7 are located in sites directly under Britannian control, excluding the one in the Antarctic. Locations for each of the remaining thought elevators were pinpointed in 7 specific locations on the screen. We can work with that later. Megatron dismissed. How goes the process of trying to weaponize Geass? One direction has yielded promising results, the other has not. Shockwave answered. Please explain. Megatron requested. Shockwave turned to the cybernetic Jeremiah in the tank that the Code R scientists were researching. This Britannian soldier has been outfitted with cybernetic enhancements, and through the extraction of the Geass energy from Mao, I am likely able to find a way to create an artificial Geass that can be implemented directly within the soldier's brain, once he has been completely rendered to our control. However, this can only be done with organic specimens. Why not Cybertronian? Megatron questioned. Shockwave then typed more on the console in front of him as the screen projected 2 images. One was a strand of organic DNA, the other was a strand of cybernucleic acid, also called CNA. As you are already aware, Lord Megatron, human and Cybertronian biology differ on even a microscopic level. The power that is transferred from the one who bears the code ability travels from the organic brain of said immortal into another's mind in the form of an energy. This energy travels along human electrons within their nervous system directly into the organic brain. This energy only seems to be compatible with organic matter. So, while it may be possible for an organic's Geass ability to affect Cybertronians, provided the ability is strong enough, it cannot be directly transferred into another. The energy itself must be altered on an atomic level to even create the possibility of such a transfer. I see. Megatron said with small sigh. You know, VV spoke nervously. We could try, forming a contract. If we can do that, then you can possess a Geass ability yourself, Lord Megatron. It wouldn't hurt. And establish a connection with you that you can take advantage over. I think not. Megatron said, glaring at the immortal boy. You will only establish a contract if I say so. Frenzy laughed mockingly at VV. Rejected. Megatron looked rather disappointed. So perhaps they could find a way to weaponize Geass, but only after modifying humans to serve their purpose. True, this Geass order VV has been in charge of has plenty of potential candidates to experiment on, he had hoped he'd be able to use it himself. But he wasn't foolish enough to try and form a contract with VV that would put him on the immortal boy's strings. However, what Shockwave said also caught his attention, about the energy needing to be altered. Though Megatron did not possess the ability to alter specifically, he had the means to corrupt it. Shockwave, where is the supply of dark energon? Megatron asked. This way, Lord Megatron. Shockwave led his leader, with Soundwave, VV, and Frenzy following right behind. The Cyclopean scientist lead Megatron to large container filled with a massive cluster of the crystallized blood of Unicron. One look from this dark substance was enough to even make VV shudder. He could practically feel something alive inside these crystals just staring down at him. Shockwave, the Geass extraction. Megatron held his hand open, telling Shockwave to provide him with the substance, which is what Shockwave did as he handed Megatron a vial of the liquidized Geass energy. Lord Megatron, if I may, what exactly are you intending to do? Shockwave queried as even Soundwave was looking with curiosity and concern. Call it, an experiment. Megatron answered as he suddenly reached into the container to pull out a shard of the dark energon before jamming it into the vial. The second the purple crystal made contact with the red liquid, purple bolts surged throughout the vial before the entire liquid sample was absorbed directly into the shard like water into a sponge. Wait, Lord Megatron, what are you? Even Frenzy was caught off guard, but nobody would be prepared for what Megatron did next. The Decepticon leader jammed the shard directly into his spark chamber. The second it made contact, the dark energon was absorbed directly into Megatron's body as his inner workings began to glow with the same purple color, which flowed directly into his optics before they changed from red to purple. Though Megatron has been shown to control and manipulate dark energon in his own body before, this was different. A vision struck Megatron's eyes as he appeared to be falling into a bottomless void, a dark and glowing purple void with bolts of black matter streaking along the sides. Megatron was then bombarded with stilled images ranging from an ancient society of humans, to images of CC and VV, and even other individuals such as Lelouch, Rai, Mao, Charles, and other humans he did not recognize. He even saw a vision of what appeared to be Earth and Cybertron coming close together before he was suddenly pulled out of his dark visions. Megatron fell on his hands and knees, much to the surprise of every human and Decepticon present, including all the Code R scientists that had been working, as well as the Viacon soldiers. Lord Megatron. One Viacon ran to his master and tried to help him up. Megatron instinctively glanced at the soldier, his optics still purple, but what stuck out the most was a dark purple Geass emblem in both his optics surging brightly. The second Megatron made eye contact with the Viacon helping him. The Viacon backed away, screaming in absolute terror. Everyone, even Shockwave, Soundwave, and VV looked in complete and total shock. "What's going on?" Frenzy asked as they saw the Viacon screaming, as though he had seen something truly terrifying. After a few more seconds of intense screaming, the Viacon fell to the ground. Soundwave scanned the Viacon for any sort of injuries, only to find that his spark had been extinguished. Termination. Shockwave saw Soundwave's readings, in which the silent Decepticon nodded in confirmation. "He's dead. But how?" Frenzy questioned. Soundwave displayed the life signs of the Viacon he recorded before the soldier died, allowing Shockwave to decipher them. A sudden increase in stress which led directly to his spark overloading, to the point where it became unstable and put itself out. He was afraid. Frenzy asked, wanting to make sure. Sort of like humans with heart attacks. But Cybertronians can't go through that. My assumption is that this Viacon trooper was suddenly given a hallucination that manifested in the form of his worst fears, likely coupled with energy from Dark Energon that fed directly into his spark, extinguishing it. Shockwave theorized. Megatron had stood up fully on his feet, shaking the cobwebs from his head as his optics turned from purple back to their natural red. He heard everything Shockwave said about his newfound ability as an idea came to mind. Victor. The immortal boy turned to Megatron as his optics turned purple and the dark Geass emblem manifested in them once again. "Look at me." The second the Geass sigil flew from Megatron's eyes and into VV's, the immortal screamed in terror, bombarded with visions that only he could see. Soundwave and Shockwave observed emotionlessly, while the Code R researchers and even Frenzy looked more than a little freaked. After a minute or two of increased screaming, VV stopped before he fell to the ground, flat on his back. Like with the Viacon, Soundwave scanned VV, only to find his vitals have flatlines as well. Termination. Shockwave reported. At least for now, Megatron said, knowing the boy would likely resurrect himself at any moment before he chuckled evilly. Who would have thought that this Geass power and the blood of Unicron would be so compatible? It seems I have a Geass of my own. No, I have something far greater, the power I wield, it is Dark Geass. Megatron exclaimed in evil jubilation. Your experience at controlling Dark Energon has likely enabled you to control this power. Shockwave deduced. It appears to be far stronger than any other Geass ability we have seen thus far, at least based off those that VV is aware of, enough so that is able to affect Cybertronians as well as immortal code bearers. Speaking of which, VV suddenly shot up, taking raspy breaths as his code power was able to resurrect him. Well, it would seem you truly are immortal. Megatron sneered as he loomed over VV, who looked toward Megatron in absolute terror. But immortality does not often mean invincibility, as you have just learned. So, allow me to establish a contract of my own, my dear Victor. You will submit to me and the Decepticon cause. You will renounce your brother and your project. Everything you have built, your resources, your project, even your immortal life, everything that was yours belongs to me now. Do you understand? VV shook with pure fear as he tried to stand, but he couldn't muster any strength to do so. Why, yes. Say it, Megatron insisted. I belong to you, I serve you, Lord Megatron. VV fell on his hands and knees, effectively bowing his head. I am your master, and you are my servant. Do not ever forget that. Megatron told him. I won't. VV shook as sweat and tears dripped down his face and onto the floor. Master. Ashford Academy. Lelouch, Shirley, and Rai had pulled CC into the storage area that Bumblebee, RC, and Cliffjumper had parked themselves in. Though the three Autobots remained in their respective vehicle modes, they too questioned the matter of CC causally walking about on campus. I'm asking about the biggest pizza in the world. CC finished explaining. You almost blew your cover for a stupid pizza. RC questioned. I wouldn't expect you to understand, considering Cybertronians can't eat food. CC retorted. You know, as far as your typical burns go, that was actually pretty weak. Cliffjumper commented. You want pizza, we'll bring you some. Just wait in your room. Lelouch told her. You're all preoccupied with other matters. CC pointed out. The military, the press, and two freaking Decepticons are here. What if one of them sees you? Rai questioned. I'll wear a disguise, I don't like cold pizza. The immortal girl replied. CC, no offense, but I think you're becoming addicted to this. Shirley said. I like pizza, CC said. Enough so that you're willing to blow your cover over it, apparently. Bumblebee bleeped in annoyance. Suddenly, the door to the storage room opened as the group looked to see Colin, Ogi, and Chigusa around the corner. Why did you come into the school? Colin asked Ogi. Oh, that's my fault. Chigusa said. You brought her, too. Colin looked toward Ogi questionably. We just went for some air, that's all. Ogi said. Colin, what's going? Lelouch walked out with Rai and Shirley right behind him, but all three were surprised to see both Ogi and Chigusa with her. Lelouch. Didn't see you there. Ogi looked in surprise. Oh, are they friends of yours? Chigusa asked him. Yeah, they are. Ogi replied. Despite Ogi being truthful, it didn't take long for an uneasy feeling to set in for the whole group, and even the three disguised Autobots present. Well, this is awkward. Rai said. Meanwhile, Euphemia, in her civilian disguise, complete with a hat and sunglasses, had just entered the Ashford Academy grounds as she and her bodyguards walked through the festival. I'm really sorry, but there's something I want to talk to Suzaku about. Euphemia apologized to her guards. It's all right, Your Highness. The female guard assured her. Flashback. The previous night, Euphemia had finally got a chance to talk to her elder half-brother as she told him everything she learned from Optimus and Zero about Megatron and the true history behind Cybertron. She also told him about this idea she had that could get support from the Black Knights and the Autobots. Though she still didn't tell Schneisel about Lelouch being Zero, as that was his secret and he should tell their brother only when he feels he's ready. Euphy, I think this is a wonderful idea you've come up with. Schneisel told her. Really? You mean that? Euphemia asked excitedly. Absolutely. Schneisel assured her. If Optimus and Zero are truly the people you say they are, then we have most certainly misjudged them. More importantly however, from what you've told me, it seems Megatron is the true evil. This idea you've made should help us to establish a means for us to talk so that we can better defend this world from the real threat. I'll talk to Cornelia so that she understands. End flashback. Schneisel approved of my idea. Euphemia thought with a smile on her face. I have to tell Suzaku and Lelouch. Her smile faded however as her look became serious. More importantly, I have to find Lelouch and Nunnally. I have to tell them that Megatron knows about them being here. Then we can. She was suddenly stopped by Sayoko who prevented her from accidentally walking in front of a certain blind and crippled girl. I'm so sorry, are you alright? Euphemia asked. I'm fine, are you okay? Euphemia recognized the girl in the wheelchair almost instantly. Nunnally. Nunnally herself gave a small gasp. That voice, is it you? Back in the storage garage, the three Autobots remained hidden as CC slid herself quietly inside Cliffjumper's vehicle mode as they watched the humans in front of them talk among each other. So that's the pureblood staying with Ogi. Cliffjumper observed, speaking only through the comms so that nobody else could hear them. She seems nice. Yeah, wait till she gets her memories back. RC pointed out. You're Ogi's house guest. Rai asked Chigusa. Yes I am. She nodded. He's been so kind to me. Really? Rai cast a knowing grin in the older man's direction with a raised eyebrow, causing the old man to cough as he tried to hide his blush. And you're all friends of his, it's a pleasure. Chigusa offered her hand to shake, toward Lelouch at first. Though hesitant, as he did know who she was at first, he accepted her hand. Rai shook it next, though when she offered one to Shirley, the girl instinctively flinched. Is something wrong? No. Nothing really, Shirley said as she shook Chigusa's hand. You just reminded me of someone else, that's all. However, before any kind of conversation could start up, the door on the side opened as Monica and Suzaku walked in. I'm sure the extra propane tanks for the burner are in here. The Knight of 12 said as they looked around, but she noticed two people. Colin. Lelouch. Oh, hello. Colin tried to put on her sickly facade as Ogi hid with Chigusa behind a storage container, and Shirley and Rai quietly slipped further back toward the vehicle modes of Bumblebee, Cliffjumper and RC. Are there any spare fuel tanks back there? Monica asked the pair. None here, maybe on the other side. Lelouch tried to redirect their attention away from their friends and colleagues that remained hidden. Scrap, this is bad. Rai said in a whisper. No kidding. RC quietly replied. If Suzaku and that Knight of the Round sees us, our cover might be blown. They might even recognize the pureblood. Hey Rai, can't you use your Geass on them? Cliffjumper whispered to him. I guess but, I don't. Rai seemed rather unsure, not that he thought his Geass couldn't work, but his mental trauma from recovering his enemies made him indecisive about using the power that got his mother and sister, and so many other people killed. Shirley could practically feel the tension he was experiencing and tried to put a hand on his shoulder to calm him down. Maybe Lelouch can use his Geass. Shirley offered. He already used it on Suzaku. RC said. Plus, he's trying to be more cautious with it so it doesn't run wild. Shirley glanced back to the garage door behind the disguised Autobots when an idea came to her. Maybe we can sneak you guys out through there. We'll need a distraction, Cliffjumper replied. Garage doors are usually pretty loud. Rai looked around when he noticed the shelf of boxes that Lelouch and Colin were close to as he got an idea. He quickly grabbed a screw on the ground and rolled it at Lelouch's foot. This got his attention as Rai silently gestured toward the garage door in the back as well as the three Autobots, before glancing at the shelf that was above Lelouch and Colin. Lelouch slightly nudged Colin and gestured upward, giving Colin the message, which she seemed to understand as she glanced at Ogi to silently tell him what to do, which he understood with a nod of his own. Hey, is something going on over here? Suzaku asked, noticing their odd expressions. Colin suddenly screamed, surprising both Monica and Suzaku as they looked in one direction, giving her an opportunity to cut the straps around the shelf with her knife before she pushed them down. The panels are falling. Run away! Colin screamed. As the shelf began to fall over, Lelouch, Suzaku, and Monica ran to try and catch it, giving Rai an opening to open the garage door via the button on the wall. Bumblebee, meanwhile, dropped a smoke bomb, which exploded, covering the garage door's opening, allowing the Autobot trio to back out in their vehicle modes, with Shirley and Rai slipping out as well, and giving Ogi and Chigusa a chance to slip out through the front door. When it was all done, Lelouch and Suzaku were holding the shelf and panel up, with Monica covering Colin with her body so she wouldn't get hurt. Oh, thank you, Colin said, keeping up her sickly facade. I'm just glad you're not hurt. Monica said. Where'd all this smoke come from? It must be for detecting gas leaks. Lelouch made up an excuse. Looks like the main valve was knocked loose. Never mind that, can someone help me please? Suzaku asked. I'm in a little pain here. What's wrong? Monica asked. My ankle. It's a very familiar feeling. Suzaku said as Arthur the cat was biting down on Suzaku's ankle, while also digging his claws into him. The garage door was closed as Rai and Shirley slid their backs down the wall toward the ground as they sat with sighs of relief. That was a close call. Rai said. Yeah, not quite the excitement you would look for in a school festival. Shirley agreed. But maybe the kind you'd find at our job. Rai joked, causing Shirley to giggle. And the bots. Were okay. Bumblebee bleeped as he, RC, and Cliffjumper, still in their vehicle modes were right in front of the pair. CC's still inside me, even though that sounds really wrong. Cliff attempted a joke. Really? RC questioned somewhat irritably. What? I make jokes in tense situations, you know it. Cliff replied, which ended up causing Shirley and Rai to laugh out loud anyway. At the same time, Ogi and Chigusa were able to make it to a safe spot under a tree as well. Sorry you got caught in that weirdness back there. Ogi apologized. No, it was actually sort of fun. She said. I haven't felt this excited in a long time. Ogi had a serious expression on his face. Hey, Chigusa, I think maybe you should see the rest of my friends pretty soon. Things might get a little messy out here and my friend's place might be the safest spot. Okay. Chigusa nodded in understanding. You know Ogi, I wonder if the person I used to be was as happy as I am now. That took Ogi by surprise, but not as much as what she said next. You know, I've been thinking and I don't think I'd mind becoming an 11. Meanwhile, inside the Ashford clubhouse, Nunnally and Euphemia both sat at a table inside the dining room as they each had a cup of tea. So Lelouch told you everything, about him being Zero and what's going on with the Autobots and the Decepticons? Euphemia asked her younger half-sister. Yes, he did, Nunnally confirmed. I wasn't sure what to believe at first, but I trust my brother. Did he also tell you about Rai? Euphemia's look became nothing short of saddened. Yes, I can't believe it, we have another brother and what he went through, it was so horrible, she was almost brought to tears. But I know Ray's getting all the help he needs. Nunnally said. I'm sure the Autobots and the other Black Knights are doing all they can to help him. So, you've met them? Euphemia asked. Only Bumblebee right now, but he's really nice. Nunnally smiled. He's been taking care of Lelouch since the beginning. And from what I've heard, the other Autobots are all really nice too, especially Optimus, given how highly Lelouch speaks of him. Big Brother even considers him like a father. I can definitely see why. Euphemia smiled. I've met Optimus, and I have to say, I've never met such a kind, noble, and gentle soul in all my life. Hey, do you remember that one time when you and I got into a great big argument when we were little? On which of us was gonna marry Lelouch when we grew up? Yes, I do. Euphemia confirmed, her smile growing even more brightly. We put Lelouch on the spot by making him decide right then and there. Both half-sisters shared a laugh. So, how about now? Do you still love him, even to this day? Nunnally asked. Of course, I do. Euphemia said without a second of hesitation. He's my brother, and you're my sister, Nunnally. I love you both so much. I love you too, Euphy. Nunnally maintained her smile. Her smile quickly faded as she remembered what she had to tell them. Is Lelouch nearby? I need to talk to him. It's very important. He should be somewhere outside. Nunnally answered. Let's go find him. The Nemesis. After leaving VV under the supervision of Shockwave in his laboratory, Megatron had walked onto the bridge of his warship with his communications officer right behind him. Knockout and Breakdowner maintained their position at Ashford. Thundercracker and Skywarp were with Arachnid on Kaname Island, finishing the integration of the Insecticon hive into our ranks, and it seems that Dreadwing is with Cornelia now. Even Charles has sent the remaining Knights of the Round, with an army of Britannian soldiers to add to Cornelia's otherwise diminished forces. Megatron began to list before he scoffed slightly. Charles wants me to think he's taking this situation seriously, but he couldn't possibly understand what we've already learned. Nor will he be prepared for what we have in store. Megatron stated. And what exactly do you have in store? Both Megatron and Soundwave looked to see not only Starscream casually leaning against the console of the bridge, but also Prince Schneisel L. Britannia below him. Please pardon my unannounced visit, Lord Megatron. Schneisel gave a humble bow. Schneisel L. Britannia. Megatron acknowledged as this was the first time he met the prince, aside from Kaname Island. The second prince, and Prime Minister of the Britannian Empire. What exactly are you doing on my ship? He also cast a glance to Starscream. Master, Schneisel has revealed to me some rather interesting information regarding our enemies, Zero to be specific. Starscream said. Perhaps you should hear him out, he may be of use to us. And what exactly is it he wishes to share with us? Megatron then looked down toward Schneisel expectantly. I may not have any credible proof of this, but I believe that Zero may actually be my younger half-brother, Lelouch v. Britannia. Schneisel revealed. And what exactly makes you so certain of this if you have no proof? Megatron questioned. Because I know my brother. Schneisel began to explain. I've studied Zero's methods and tactics, and while they have changed a bit, no doubt the guidance of Optimus Prime and the other Autobots, I've played chess with Lelouch my entire life. I know his tactics. So, when I saw Zero employing similar methods, it just made all the more sense to me. Not to mention his motivations. As he was exiled by our father, Along with our sister, Lelouch no doubt seeks revenge on Britannia for abandoning him. And if Nunnally did indeed die, it only makes his vengeance all the more believable. Though I have a sneaking suspicion she may be alive, but I have no proof this either. I do, Megatron said, surprising both Starscream and Schneisel. I've known of Zero's identity since his debut with Optimus months ago. What? Starscream exclaimed in shock. How could you possibly that? Soundwave is quite competent in surveillance, I'm sure you're well aware of that by now, Starscream. Megatron stated as Soundwave displayed the necessary information, including a recording and footage of Lelouch himself as well as Zero and comparing their voices for a 100% match. He was able to figure out much sooner than I ever could. Schneisel thought in genuine surprise. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, given he was the mentor to my father, as what Starscream had told me. You discovered Zero's identity, and you choose not to tell me. Starscream exclaimed in anger and offense. Your first lieutenant. What would you have done with this information, Starscream? Megatron questioned. Why, I would have leveled that boy's residency and saw to his immediate termination. Starscream exclaimed, as though it were obvious. Exactly. Megatron responded. You would have acted rash without thinking of the consequence. True. You might have eliminated Zero, but Optimus and the Autobots would still live. Our enemies would still be a threat. It is best to wait and bide your time so that you may eliminate all your enemies in one stroke as opposed to drawing out countless battles. Starscream was about to retort, but Schneisel already spoke. He is right, Starscream. While I applaud your willingness to eliminate the problem as quickly as possible, I feel that having the patience to wait and remove the entire problem as opposed to removing one piece of it, is a more effective strategy. As much as he didn't want to admit it, Starscream saw Schneisel had a point and simply groaned in minor annoyance. But I sense that Optimus and Lelouch are not your only problems, are they? He spoke to Megatron directly. Schneisel, what is it that you want? Megatron questioned. To join you. Schneisel answered, causing Megatron to raise a minor eyebrow in surprise. You want to remove my father from his position in power, or maybe you want to completely remove Britannia entirely. And that is something I can assist you with. And what can you offer me that I cannot simply take? Megatron continued to question. Inside information on Britannia's military operations. Schneisel began to list. Psychological profiling on the most powerful figures in the Empire. Viable strategies that can guarantee absolute victory. But also, having a Britannian prince on your side, one who is beloved by his people, could make the transition easier. True, there may still be some who are willing to fight, but I can certainly help provide a means to get what you want. Megatron didn't seem all that convinced. You are willing to betray your own nation, your own family, your own father. I have no love for my father. Schneisel said honestly. Just as he has no love for me or any of his other children, though I'm certain you already know that. But in all honesty, I really have no love for Britannia as a whole. Let me ask you, Megatron. What is it that people truly want? Starvation and poverty. Discrimination and corruption. War and terrorism. They want the problems that are flooding this world to go away forever. People of this world are driven by their own lusts and desires, by their own greed. They fight each other because they're all human. My theory is that their own subconscious understands this, despite the prejudice that exists in this world, they're all equal despite differences in race or status, and thus, are of equal chance to be overthrown. But you, and your Decepticons, you're more powerful than anything they have seen before. In the eyes of this world's ancient civilizations you would have been seen as gods. Perhaps it's time for them to think of you as such. What exactly are you trying to get at? Megatron wanted him to get right to the point. If the people of this world see something as powerful as you and your forces overturn the Britannian Empire, the empire that stood for centuries, in just a short amount of time, perhaps even overnight. The people would either look at you in our fear. Schneisel said. They'll be so amazed or so terrified that they wouldn't dare challenge you. Under your rule, all humans would be equal, right? Albeit underneath your heel, but still equal. This could finally bring all the wars and conflict of this world to an end. Perhaps. Megatron acknowledged. But what of the Autobots or the Black Knights who have proven they are capable of standing against us? Then we remove them from the equation as well. At the same time, in fact. Schneisel answered. Seeing them as well as Britannia defeated will make the people all the more submissive. Megatron did see all the valid points Schneisel made. Yet, at the same time, he was no fool. He could tell that Schneisel was likely only seeking to join the winning side and likely had an ulterior motive, yet this made him all the more prudent to keep him where he can see him, much like with Victor. Perhaps he could find a use for him. Very well. Megatron acknowledged. I will allow you to join our ranks, Schneisel. If only because, you are more valuable beside me than against me. You are too gracious, Lord Megatron. Schneisel bowed in a seemingly humble fashion. Ashford Academy. All right. Any moment. Rivals announced to the audience gathered in front of him as he stood on top of a stand in front of the massive pizza oven, wearing an apron and the chef's hat. We are about to begin the historic task of the making of the world's largest pizza. Please note that this contraption is an oven specially built for this occasion. A fabulous waste of money. Meanwhile, in the control booth, Lelouch had made all the final and necessary preparations as he sat inside and just watched the show. This feels so easy, he thought with a smile. If I make a mistake here, no one's life is on the line. Millie then walked in, closing the door behind her. Not bad, got everything on schedule, huh? I've learned to manage people lately. Lelouch said. Still, they all seem so optimistic, don't they? Not just the Chinese Federation invading, but everything that's been going on with giant transforming robots. Yet look at everyone. That's why people need this. Millie leaned against his chair. Festivals are necessary, a nice little break from how hard the world can be. I'm sure you can use one too, considering all the hard choices you've probably had to make. 0. Lelouch looked at Millie as if she had just grown a second head. It really wasn't all that hard to figure out, Lelouch. Millie began. First, you've been skipping out on classes since Zero's shown up, even though you've stopped gambling. Second, that car you recently bought looks a lot like one of those Autobots we saw on the news, not to mention you only just bought that so-called car just before the Autobots made their debut. Third, it's your reasoning. After everything your father did to you, it makes sense you'd try to get him back like this. Lelouch sighed as he put his fingers on his eyelids. Was I that obvious? Millie giggled in response. Did you tell anyone else? No. Millie shook her head. You know what my mother would do with this if she found out. Not to mention Nunnally. Even after what happened to Shirley's father. Lelouch confessed, still feeling guilty for that. I'm sure it was an accident. I know you wouldn't do anything like that. I know you, Lelouch. Millie spoke to him sincerely as she put a hand on his shoulder. You might be really angry, maybe even insensitive sometimes, but you're not a bad person. No matter what, I'm still your friend. And I'm here for you whenever you need me. The young revolutionary gave an honest smile. Thank you, Millie. His smile quickly faded. Listen, you should probably leave the Tokyo settlement soon. She looked to him with confusion. With the way things are going, it might not be safe anymore. I'm up against a very dangerous opponent. Your father? Millie asked. Worse. Lelouch replied instantly. However, before their conversation could continue, the door opened. Lelouch. Nunnally, how's the pizza? However, Lelouch gasped in shock as he saw not only Nunnally, but Euphemia as well, still with her sunglasses and hat. Sorry, I gotta go, we'll continue this conversation later. He told Millie before he left the booth to join his sisters. It looks like the ingredients are all prepared. Rivals continued to announce as he hopped down onto the ground in front of a massive tarp covering something large. Now, introducing our special dough tosser, the tarp was taken down to reveal the Ganymede Nightmare. The Ashford Academy Ganymede. Yes, it's a bit of an antique, however at the controls, is the Student Council's special member and Princess Euphemia's personal knight, Suzaku Kururugi. It was true, Suzaku was indeed at the controls of the old nightmare and would act as the dough tosser for the massive pizza to be. Anya was meanwhile at the side, recording it via her phone. Wow, look at all these people who came here to see Suzaku. Gino said as he and Sayoko were helping other students hold up the massive plugs for the Ganymede to provide it with power. Of course, Suzaku is like a ray of hope for many 11s. Sayoko said. They revere him. Dang, Gino had an impressed smile. On the other side of the wall, Knockout and Breakdown continued to watch in their vehicle modes as Suzaku began to toss the pizza dough with the Ganymede, though they didn't seem all that impressed. These kids sure are getting excited over a large piece of fluff. Breakdown commented. Why doesn't Kururugi use the Lancelot? Knockout asked. It's way flashier than that piece of junk. Millie also watched the show from outside the control booth as Lloyd walked by her side. Ganymede, a third-generation nightmare. The type used by Lady Marianne the Flash, isn't that correct? It's just a fundamental frame. Millie responded. A big puppet for events like this. An unorthodox design dropped for the next generation of nightmares due to Lady Marianne's death. Lloyd said. I'm guessing that's the real reason you want to marry me. Millie said as Cecile walked in between them. So now you get it. She spoke in a tone that was sympathetic towards the blonde. He has no attraction whatsoever to the opposite sex. Well, I get the general idea anyway. Lloyd replied, not really denying his assistant's claim. As the Ganymede tossed the pizza in the air, Bumblebee, RC, and Cliffjumper watched from their own vehicle modes in the Ashford parking lot, with CC still inside Cliffjumper. You gotta admit, when in the battlefield or the kitchen, kids got skills. Cliffjumper commented. Let's just hope we can get those skills on our side. RC said. Well, considering he's Euphemia's knight, and she knows about Lelouch, it's starting to look like a possibility. Bumblebee replied. And hopefully you didn't just jinx us. CC stated. Colin, Shirley, and Rai continued to watch as well from the corner of the school building. Ogie made it off campus, all right. Rai asked Colin. Yeah, he and his little girlfriend are just fine. Colin said in a low grumble. You don't sound all that happy. Shirley pointed out. Considering she's not only a pureblood, but also someone who nearly got Lelouch killed, yeah, I'm not exactly thrilled. Colin stated. Rai didn't seem to disagree, but as he looked around one corner, he saw something that surprised him. Hey guys, look over there. Both Shirley and Colin looked in the direction he was referring to. Hey, Lelouch is with Nunnally and, Shirley said, but she and Colin both saw the pink-haired girl with him. Though she was wearing a disguise, it wasn't hard to figure out who it was. Is that Euphemia? Sure looks like it, Colin said, sounding just as surprised. But what's she doing here? Let's go find out, Rai stated as he walked toward the trio, with Colin and Shirley right behind him. Lelouch sat next to the disguised Euphemia, watching Suzaku's performance, with Nunnally right beside them. Last year, it was my turn to do it. But I can't compare to a real pro. By that, he means he made a mess that looked like someone threw up everywhere. Nunnally smirked. How do you know what it looks like if you couldn't see it? Lelouch questioned to his sister with a half-smirk. That's what Rivals said. Nunnally giggled, which Yuffie responded with a giggle of her own. Lelouch sighed with a small grin as he rubbed his hand down his face. However, Yuffie quickly got serious. Lelouch, listen to me. Megatron knows about you and Nunnally. That really surprised the pair, even Nunnally gave a startled gasp. He knows that you and Nunnally are a prince and princess, and he knows you're staying here at Ashford. How? The surprised Lelouch wasn't over his shock as he tried to think of how he could possibly know that. I don't know how exactly, but he was somehow able to get it from Suzaku after interrogating him. Euphemia said, I'm sure Suzaku didn't mean to reveal anything. I know he wouldn't. Lelouch quickly said before a scowl formed on his face. But it sounds like Megatron to do something like that. He calmed down, however. But you don't have to worry. As soon as the festival's over, Nunnally and I are leaving Ashford for the Ark. She'll be safe there. That's good to hear. Yuffie breathed a sigh of relief. What about Suzaku? Nunnally asked. If Megatron is as bad as you two say he is, I can't stand the thought of Suzaku being with him any longer. Don't worry Nunnally, I already talked to him. Yuffie revealed. I told Suzaku and Dreadwing everything I learned from you and Optimus, Lelouch. What really happened to Cybertron, and the both said they would work with me, even if I worked with you and Optimus to protect this world. They really said that? Lelouch asked, a feeling of hope building in his chest. Who's Dreadwing? Nunnally asked. A Decepticon, but one that I trust with my life. Euphemia answered. He has a strong sense of honor and good spark deep inside. In fact, he's a lot like Suzaku. Who's a lot like Suzaku? They turned around to see Rai, Colin, and Shirley arrive on the scene. How long have you all been there? Lelouch asked. Long enough to hear the gist. Colin answered. Oh, I remember you too, from Kaname Island. Yuffie recognized the red-haired girl and the white-haired young man. Colin, and Rai, right. Yeah. Colin nodded in confirmation, already feeling a sense of awkwardness. Hi, Your Majesty. Shirley tried to introduce herself, rather nervously. My name's Shirley, I'm a friend of Lelouch. I'm also a Black Knight, she said in a shushed whisper. Yuffie smiled. Nice to meet you, Shirley, but please just call me Yuffie. She offered her a hand to shake. Shirley was completely surprised by this, a princess was actually offering her hand to shake. It was hesitant at first, but Shirley managed to grab Yuffie's hand and shake it. The pink-haired royal then turned to her other half-brother. And Rai, Lelouch told me everything. About your past, and your mother and sister. Oh, did he? Rai cast a glance at Lelouch, not necessarily a glare, which caused Lelouch to rub the back of his neck somewhat nervously. I am so very sorry about all of that. Yuffie apologized sincerely. It's not your fault. Rai told her. You don't have to apologize. But still, Lelouch and Nunnally are about you a lot, and I want to help too. Yuffie offered her hand to her half-brother. Please Rai, I know we barely know each other, but let me be a sister for you. Rai looked more than a little emotional. He knew from Lelouch that Euphemia was a good person and she genuinely wanted to be a part of his life and family. It was something of a tearful smile as Rai accepted her hand, but he was even further shocked when she pulled him into a quick hug, causing him to look in surprise before she broke off. From a distance, Monica spotted the group talking on the stairs. What's going on over there? Why is over half the student council just talking when we're all busy here? Thank you, all of you. Yuffie said to Colin, Rai, and Shirley. For helping to look after Lelouch and Nunnally. Sure, no problem. Colin looked away with an embarrassed blush. Nunnally meanwhile smiled as she was beyond glad to see her friends and family getting along so well. Yuffie. Lelouch got her attention. Thank you for your support, but you know we have to be careful. Yes, but I have an idea that might be able to help. Hey. Monica walked over to try and get their attention, but a breeze blew in Yuffie's hat away, allowing Monica to see her hair and recognize her in surprise. Wait, Princess Euphemia. This got the attention of nearly every other student that had gathered in front of the massive pizza oven. What's up? Rivals asked in surprise, seeing everyone look away. It wasn't long before they all saw and recognized the princess. Scrap. Lelouch, Colin, Rai, and Shirley all said at the same time. Hold on, the princess is here. RC questioned as she, Bumblebee, and Cliffjumper, still in their vehicle mode saw her as well. Yep, that's her all right. B confirmed, recognizing her from Kaname Island. What's she doing here? Cliffjumper wondered aloud. It wasn't long before the other students, including those among the student council, even the other two knights of the round, saw her as well. Princess Euphemia. Nina voiced in surprise. Whoa, it is her. Gino stated, just as surprised as well. What is Princess Euphemia doing here? Anya wondered. Euphemia stood up as she tried to direct everyone's attention away from her half-siblings. Lelouch, take Nunnally away. Sorry to leave you alone at a time like this. Lelouch said as he took Nunnally and made a break for it with Shirley, Colin, and Rai. Even the news crew was already getting excited as they and the students all tried to run up toward her to either get a photo, an autograph, or just a chance to look at her, and all the other typical things people would do if they saw a celebrity. Everyone, stop. Suzaku tried to calm down the situation. Don't run. Please don't panic. However, this caused him to lose his grip over the Ganymede's controls, accidentally sending the pizza dough over the brick wall and right on top of Knockout's vehicle mode. CC gasped inside Cliffjumper's vehicle mode as she saw where the pizza would land, as did the Autobots. Ah! Knockout exclaimed as he tried to transform, but this only tore apart the dough and spread it over his paint job even more, causing him to trip and fall back almost onto breakdown had he not backed up in time. Fortunately, with everyone still focused on Yuffie, nobody noticed Knockout as he saw the dough splattered all over his paint job. His eyes twitched. Those little meat bags. He was about to come right in and slice some people up, but Breakdown had transformed and began to pull his partner away. We're not here to make a scene, remember. Breakdown reminded him as he pulled Knockout behind an alleyway of a building across the school, and nobody would notice them. However, even though all the people didn't notice the Decepticon duo, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, and RC did notice them. Though they were glad the cons didn't cause a commotion, which would have forced them to blow their cover and intervene, it didn't stop the three of them from snickering, or bleeping in Bumblebee's case, as they saw what had befallen Knockout. But, a certain immortal girl inside gave a look of sorrow. Pizza. Guess we should have left this to the pros, what do you think? Lloyd said to Millie casually, though they didn't seem to notice the Decepticons either. I'm afraid I'm just gonna have to give up on this one, Millie said, knowing just how much money was now officially wasted. And some other things. The crowd's excitement was cut off by the sound of gunshots as Cecile and her Camelot agents protectively surrounded Euphemia. Everyone, stop this at once. Cecile exclaimed. Do you realize who this is? This is the sub-viceroy, the third imperial princess. Euphemia's guard had also just arrived onto the scene. Thanks for your help, we'll take over from here. Stand back. However, the news crews, and the students all tried to get closer anyway, causing the guards and soldiers to crowd around Euphy closer. HITV. A comment. Just one word, please. A reporter asked. Princess Euphemia. It's me, Nina. I'll get you out of here. She tried to get in as well, but it was almost impossible. Hey, Euphy. Gino tried to squeeze in with Monica and Anya, but they couldn't get in either. The space is too tight. Anya said causally, despite being squeezed in herself. Euphy and Cecile were both squeezed together between the soldiers and guards like a pair of sardines. This is getting tight. Cecile groaned. Please excuse me. No, don't. Euphy exclaimed. However, there was one individual who didn't follow everyone else. This was Diethard Reed as he stepped out of the news van that had been parked in Ashford the entire time. I suppose this is to be expected from a wildcard princess like her. Diethard commented as Sayoko walked toward him. I'd like you to stay undercover here in the settlement. I'll introduce you to Zero and the Autobots later on. I understand, Sayoko said, even though she was already close to Zero himself, enough so that he asked her to keep an eye on Diethard to make sure he didn't try anything funny. All the students gasped in surprise as they saw the Ganymede roll toward them, causing them to move away as Suzaku gently used the old nightmare to pick up Euphemia in its hand. Princess Euphemia, you're not hurt, are you? Suzaku asked urgently. I'm fine, thank you Suzaku. Euphy assured. Yo. Nice save Suzaku. Gino gave him a thumbs up as Monica looked rather impressed and Anya just remained stoic as usual. Meanwhile, Lelouch and the others had discreetly and quickly made it to the Autobots trio, still in their vehicle modes, in the parking lot. Shirley and Rai hid in Cliffjumper with CC, while Lelouch and Colin got Nunnally inside Bumblebee before they went in as well. That was close. Colin commented. That's 2 close calls in one day. RC said, speaking through the comms so the people outside couldn't hear them. More than I would like. Well, at least Euphemia's safe too. Lelouch sighed in relief. Oh, and introductions. Nunnally, meet RC and Cliffjumper. RC, Cliffjumper, meet my little sister, Nunnally. Sup, nice to meet ya kid. Cliffjumper greeted causally. Even though Nunnally couldn't see either of them, she was nonetheless happy to meet more of Lelouch's friends. Hello Cliffjumper, RC, it's a pleasure to meet you too. This caused Lelouch to smile, glad his sister was meeting more of the bots. Lelouch, guess what? Euphy said that she and Suzaku are becoming very close now. This was a surprise for everyone, for Lelouch and Colin, for Shirley and Rai, who heard through the comms. Even RC, Cliffjumper, and Bumblebee were slightly surprised. They make a nice couple, almost as much as you and Colin. That caused both Lelouch and Colin's faces to turn red. What are you talking about? Colin stuttered. Nunnally smirked. It's okay, you don't have to hide anything from me. It's easy to see you two like each other. Bumblebee's radio played some romantic music, if only to tease them, causing Colin to try and kick the radio. Shut it, she told the Autobot scout with a face as red as Colin's Cliffjumper as Lelouch tried to hide his embarrassed look. Shirley also happened to hear what Nunnally said from inside Cliffjumper's vehicle mode through the comms as well, and there was something in her that caused her heart to feel a bit tense. Meanwhile, Knockout tried to shake all the pizza dough off his paint job while still in the alleyway. Why do humans have to make this stuff so damn sticky? It'll take hours to get all this off. Breakdown rolled his only eye before he spotted the Ganymede and the person it was holding. Hey, Knockout, look who's here. Knockout looked in the direction Breakdown was pointing to and saw Euphemia. What is that little pink-haired brat doing here? From her vantage point on the Ganymede's hand, Yuffie could see that Lelouch, Nunnally and their friends had made it to safety inside the Autobot trio's vehicle modes. Thank heavens, they're all right. Princess Euphemia, down here, can I get a statement, please? One reporter called to her. Seeing all these reporters gathered together, gave Euphemia an idea. Could you please network this broadcast nationwide? That took everyone by surprise. Huh, you mean go live, now? Yuffie. Suzaku wasn't sure what she was trying to do. I have a very important announcement. The Nemesis. On the bridge, Soundwave had displayed the Britannian capital city of Pendragon for Megatron, Schneisel, and Starscream to observe. I must admit. For a squabbling empire, their capital is rather secure. Starscream observed. Of course, it is. Schneisel replied. It's supposed to be the most secure place in the world. Even if the Knights of the Round aren't present, its defenses are airtight. Not to mention all the reinforcements Britannia can summon at their beck and call should it be attacked. Charles has clearly built a strong fortress. Megatron acknowledged. Even with our superior firepower, Britannia is too well spread. Simply attacking would only provoke retaliation that our enemies could take advantage over. We need something that can give us an edge, a tactical advantage, if you will. Lord Megatron, you may want to tune into the news. Knockout contacted him. I'm sure there's something you'd be interested to see. Your Highness, it's Princess Euphemia. Guilford got Cornelia's attention, as well as Darlton, Nonette, Dreadwing, and even Bismarck, Bradley, and Dorothea. What's she doing now? Cornelia asked, sounding more annoyed and exhausted than anything else. The Ark. And we go to our special live coverage. The news report was on the Ark's main screen, showing Optimus, Ironhide, Ratchet, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Fix-It, as well as Rakshata Toto, Katace, and Kagaya. The announcement about to be made. I am Euphemia, Sub-Viceroy of Area 11 of the Holy Britannian Empire. There is something of great consequence that I wish to tell you all today. What do you think it is? Bulkhead asked. Guess we're about to find out. Wheeljack answered as Optimus especially paid close attention. Ashford Academy. I, Euphemia Lee Britannia, declare an immediate ceasefire between the Britannian military and the rebel force of the Black Knights and the Autobots. She announced, earning multiple gasps from her audience. What? Lelouch gasped. A ceasefire. Bumblebee seemed just as surprised, as well as Colin, RC, Cliffjumper, Rye, Shirley, and even Nunnally. The entire planet, not just Britannia, is facing a grave threat that could lead to the potential destruction of the entire world. Euphemia continued to announce, we cannot afford to fight amongst ourselves any longer. And to show my support for the cause of freedom that Optimus Prime and Zero both fight for, I hereby declare the formation of the Specially Administrative Zone of Japan in the area of Mount Fuji. If they weren't surprised before, they were now. Wait, a special zone? Colin questioned in shock. Is she serious? RC also questioned. Suzaku looked in genuine surprise, with a feeling of hope in his eyes. They're recognizing Japan. Damn it. Diethard slammed his fist on the desk inside his news van. Doesn't that stupid girl know what everyone else is gonna do? There's no way Britannia or the Decepticons will let that happen. Within the especially administrative zone of Japan, 11s will be permitted to call themselves Japanese. Euphemia continued. Restrictions against 11s and special rights for Britannians will no longer exist within this zone. It will be a place where Britannians and Japanese live side by side as equals. Her audience had several mixed reactions. Several Japanese individuals as well as other students looked in surprise and amazement. Nina looked terrified and even repulsed at such a thought. Anya's stoic eyes contained a hint of surprise. Even Gino and Monica were both stunned by this as well. She's really serious about this, isn't she? Cliffjumper said. Yuffie, no. Lelouch stuttered, his body shaking and eyes radiant with worry, something that caused Colin, Bumblebee, and Nunnally to look at him with concern. Our father, Megatron, they won't let this happen. Do you hear me? Zero. Optimus Prime. Euphemia continued to announce. You told me of the threat we all face. I know now who the real enemy is. Please, join me in not only protecting this world, but ensuring where it has a peaceful future. Not under Britannian subjugation, but a place where freedom is the right of all sentient beings. What is she doing? Cornelia practically exclaimed as she and everyone else saw the broadcast. Euphy. Nonette was gravely concerned for the girl as well, as were both Guilford and Darlton. Oh my, looks like someone's stepping out of line. Luciano Bradley smirked sadistically while Dorothea glared at the image of Euphemia and Bismarck remained stoic. Dreadwing seemed the most visibly concerned. Euphemia, the consequences that could result from this. Long live Princess Euphemia. Nearly at Ashford, including all the Japanese citizens, cheered at Euphemia's declaration, save for a few skeptical students. Gino looked a bit confused. Hey, is this a good thing or a bad thing? He asked Monica and Anya. It depends on what you view as good or bad. Anya replied robotically. One thing's for certain, Monica said with concern, not everyone is gonna be happy with this. Well, this is a good thing, right? Shirley tried to say as she and her friends continued to hide with the Autobot trio. I mean, if we have a truce with Britannia, we can focus on stopping the Decepticons. Shirley, think about it for a second. RC told her. That dirtbag Charles Z. Britannia kicked out Lelouch and Nunnally just because their mom died. How do you think he's gonna handle his children directly challenging his policies and authority? Yeah, he's not gonna be happy about that. Cliffjumper said. And neither is Megatron. Ooh. Shirley realized what they were trying to say as she looked to Rai and CC, both seemed just as concerned as she was. None however, were more scared than Lelouch. Euphy. Our father, Megatron, please, no, I don't want to lose you. Not again. He felt a soft touch on his hand, and looked to see Nunnally, who was trying to console him, despite her being nervous for their sister's safety as well. Lelouch instinctively glanced toward Colin who had a concerned look on her face. He could even feel Bumblebee was more than a little as well. The Ark. Has she lost her mind? Catace exclaimed. What in the world is that girl thinking? Ratchet also exclaimed. She's thinking about trying to help us. Bulkhead stated. I mean, this could really help us, maybe even get us some support and make our job easier. It could also put a target on her back for Charles and Megatron, as well as everyone who supports her. Ironhide stated. We might even look at a Britannian civil war that could result from this, which is what we've been trying to avoid. Well, you all heard what the kid's family is like. Wheeljack said. Of course, they're gonna fight each other. Kinda saw this coming. Either way you slice it, our situation just got a lot more dicey. Rakshta said, being perfectly calm while Fixit seemed more than a little concerned as he tried to calculate all the positive and negative outcomes of this scenario. Toto and Kagaya looked towards each other with concern, but none of them seemed more concerned than Optimus Prime as he looked toward Euphemia with worry, knowing what kind of trouble could result from this. The Nemesis. Well, she's as dramatic as ever I see. Schneisel said calmly. Though he did tell Euphy he approved of her plan, he knew deep down it was just a pipe dream. Suddenly Starscream slammed his hand onto the console in anger. That wretched, worthless, insufferable. He couldn't even find the right words, he was so angry. I swear, that girl will suffer for such insolence. However, both Starscream and Schneisel, as well as Soundwave, looked back towards Megatron as they heard a chuckle from the Decepticon leader, which turned into a full-blown laugh. Ha, 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 ha. The Special Administrative Zone of Japan, Megatron mused with an evil sneer. Just the tactical advantage I need. Facade of blood. It was rather late in the evening as Lelouch and Sayoko packed the last of the suitcases into the trunk of Bumblebee's vehicle mode. Nunnally was present as well, along with Millie as the trunk was closed. So, this is it. You're really leaving, Millie said to them. Yes, I'm afraid so. Lelouch confirmed. Thanks for everything, Millie, but your family can't protect us, not against what we're facing. I understand. Millie nodded. After the school festival had ended, Lelouch gave Millie a brief explanation of the conflict he, the Black Knights, and the Autobots were waging against the Decepticons. Nunnally reached out to grab Millie's hand as the younger girl had a sad smile on her face. Thank you for everything, Millie. I'll miss you. Millie had a sad smile of her own as she kneeled down to Nunnally's level. I'll miss you, too. The two shared a hug. Make sure you keep your brother out of trouble. I will. Nunnally giggled before they pulled apart. Sayoko then walked toward the blonde. Lady Ashford, it has been a pleasure. She bowed humbly to the schoolgirl. Take care of yourself, Sayoko. Millie smiled before she turned to address Lelouch. Millie, I know I already said it, but Lelouch had a difficult time getting this out. Thank you for everything you've done for us, you're a good friend. You, too. Millie smiled before she and Lelouch shared an embrace of their own. Please tell Rai I'm gonna miss him. I will. Lelouch said before they parted. Bumblebee's back doors opened as his back seats folded in to allow Nunnally and her wheelchair to enter the vehicle mode, with some help from Sayoko before she sat into the passenger seat, followed by Lelouch in the driver's seat. Hey. Millie tapped the hood to speak to Bumblebee directly. You watch out for those two, alright? Or you're gonna have to answer to me. Bumblebee gave a honk of acknowledgement, as she didn't have a translator so Millie wouldn't be able to understand him even if he did try to speak. He then drove off with his passengers as Millie watched them leave the Ashford Academy grounds. The yellow Autobot had exited the groundbridge portal as he and his passengers had entered the groundbridge bay of the Ark where Optimus Prime and CC were waiting for them. The doors opened as Lelouch and Sayoko stepped out before they helped to wheel Nunnally out, allowing Bumblebee to transform. Upon seeing Optimus for the first time, Sayoko looked up in absolute awe and wonder, something that caused CC to smirk. Close that mouth, you're drooling. The Immortal teased. Even though she couldn't see him, Nunnally felt that she was in the presence of someone else, someone who just made her feel a sensation of hope, comfort, and awe that she had never really known before. She had a good idea who it was but allowed her brother to make the introductions. Sorry it took so long, Nunnally, but let me finally introduce you to a good friend of mine, Optimus Prime. Lelouch introduced. Though he had a calm exterior, inwardly he was beyond excited at these two finally meeting. Hello, Optimus. Nunnally smiled. It's a pleasure to meet you. Big brother has told me a lot about you. Optimus smiled back as he kneeled down to be closer to the young girl. Likewise, I am pleased to meet you as well, Nunnally. Welcome to the Ark. I promise you'll be safe here amongst friends. It was almost impossible for Lelouch to contain his own joy as he could already tell how much these two were gonna hit it off, but above all else, he felt a great deal of relief to know that Nunnally was finally safe. Within the Ark, she was surrounded by people and bots that would protect her, and she was far out of reach from their father and Megatron. Hey, I'm sorry to break up this otherwise touching moment, but the others are expecting you. CC spoke to Optimus and Lelouch directly, and they both had a good idea what it was about. Alright, can you and Sayoko help Nunnally get settled? Lelouch asked the Immortal. Of course. CC nodded. Lelouch. Nunnally asked as she could almost feel her brother's anxiousness, while also having a good idea what they are talking about. Don't worry, Nunnally, we'll make sure everything is taken care of. Lelouch assured his sister before Sayoko took her wheelchair and followed CC to the quarters that they had already prepared for the young girl. Not long after they left, Lelouch and Bumblebee followed Optimus to the bridge. After getting changed into his Zero uniform, minus the helmet, Lelouch had arrived on the bridge of the Ark as he sat in the living area alongside Colin, Ogi, Toto, Katase, Rakshata, Rai, Shirley, Kagaya, Diathard, Tamaki, and even Kirihara, with Fix-It present as well. Standing around them were the Autobots consisting of Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, RC, Cliffjumper, Ratchet, Bulkhead, Ironhide, and Wheeljack. So, the Special Administrative Zone of Japan. Cliffjumper spoke first. Definitely didn't see that coming. Did you know about this, Zero? Katase asked their young leader. No, I had no idea about any of this. Lelouch replied. How bad is the damage? Nothing yet, considering it was announced only a few hours ago. Ratchet replied. But we've seen that Euphemia is dead serious about it, they're already getting it set up. Already the SAS has a great deal of support, unsurprising from the Japanese population. Ironhide put in. Most are from those living in the ghettos, and we have some honorary Britannians there as well. For all intents and purposes, Euphemia's declaration has been well received. Fix-It said. Any from our own ranks? Lelouch asked. Nobody's officially joined yet, but we've heard a lot of Black Knights talking about joining the zone. Bulkhead answered. It makes sense. Diethard commented. Unlike with us, there's no risk involved in signing up for the Japan Special Zone. Besides, when you compare the pedigree princess with the mysterious unknown man behind the mask, as well as giant alien robots, it's obvious which one exalts more appeal. Rakshata added. What does Kyoto have to say in regard to this? Optimus asked Kirihara and Geass specifically. They're almost completely against it. Kirihara replied. They view this as a pity gift, and for the sake of their pride, they won't accept. But before they make any decisions, they wanted to get information from you too, given there is one particular wildcard up in the air. Geass said to Optimus and Lelouch. You mean the Decepticons? Optimus said. There's no way those bastards are gonna support something like that. Tamaki commented. And based on Euphemia's declaration, it would seem that she's trying to turn Britannia against them. Toto said. Do you think it would work? RC asked. I can think of a few people in Britannia, including some among the royal family, who might support it. Lelouch replied. But there's an even greater number who won't, or just wait in hiding until the Decepticons are dealt with before they try to take over themselves. That's of course if it even gets that far. You think the Decepticons or Britannia are gonna try something? Colin asked. With so many people all gathered in one place, not to mention many of them are probably Black Knights, they'll see it as a way to get us all together and try get rid of us. Cliffjumper assumed. Even if it means getting rid of Princess Euphemia. Shirley asked. My father didn't have any qualms about what would have happened to me in Nunnally. I sincerely doubt he'll show mercy to Euphy, considering her actions are directly in contradiction to his own policies. Lelouch answered. And that's not even considering what Megatron might do with this. I guess we better hope that Buckethead doesn't just straight up level the whole place to set an example. Wheeljack commented. That does seem rather reckless of him. Ratchet said. Oh, and destroying a whole planet doesn't count as reckless. Rai questioned. I agree. Toto spoke. You said Megatron had no regrets about destroying Cybertron. Megatron may be evil, but there's always a reason behind his actions, albeit twisted. Optimus said. He's right. Ironhide agreed. When Megatron messed with the core, he wasn't trying to destroy Cybertron, he felt he could control it. But, like you've said, when the damage was done, he didn't regret a thing. But that doesn't mean he won't try something with the SAS. Cliffjumper said. I mean, it seems like a golden opportunity to do something pretty bad, for whatever twisted reason he'll come up with. So, you guys are saying anything can happen? Ogi asked. Yes. Optimus confirmed. There's also one other thing you should all know. Shirley got everyone's attention. Before we left school, I heard from Gino that the other Knights of the Round have arrived in Japan. That got everyone's attention. Are you sure about this? Toto questioned seriously. Yeah, Monica and Anya even talked about it too. Shirley nodded. So, who exactly are we talking about? Bulkhead asked. Fixit pulled out a small Minicon console as he began to access its data. Excluding the Knights who had previously arrived in Japan, those remaining consist of Luciano Bradley, the Knight of 10, pilot of the RZA-10JS Percival, otherwise known as the Vampire of Britannia. Guessing you don't get called that for being nice. RC commented. Dorothea Ernst, the Knight of 4, and pilot RZA-4EE Palamedes, and Bismarck Waldstein, the Knight of 1, and pilot of the RZA-1A Galahad. Fixit continued. And according to these files, most of their nightmares are built from data gathered by the Lancelot, while the Galahad was constructed based off the Gawaine's design. In other words, all 7 Knights of the Round, the best pilots in the entire Britannian Empire, with state-of-the-art nightmares, are here in Japan. Katace said gravely as most of the group felt a great deal of pressure, all except Diethard as he tried his best to contain his own excitement. The Knights of the Round are rarely together, and for all of them to be called here. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. The fanatic reporter thought. So, what is our plan? Ratchet asked. Before I came here, I got into contact with Euphemia. Lelouch began. I'm going to meet with her tomorrow night and we're going to discuss this. Though it looks like the SAS is happening, our first priority, as it always has been, is to protect the people. Agreed. Optimus also said, I am hoping, we are all hoping, that nothing bad will result from this. However, we must also be prepared for that to be case. So, should Britannia or the Decepticons attack, we must protect the innocent. At the same time, in the Tokyo settlement, a similar meeting was being held by many nobles of Britannia as they discussed what to do with Euphemia. About this special administrative zone of Japan, there's some unpleasant rumors about Princess Euphemia. It must be due to the Kaname Island matter. You think she contacted Zero and those Autobots there? I suspect there's a connection that goes all the way to the top. No connection. The Viceroy wasn't the only one asking what was going on. But in any case, our connections with them need to be. Right, we'll have to sever ties with them at once. Suddenly, the door opened to reveal Darlton as well as Bartley. I'm afraid it's too late. They all turned around in shock to see the two military officers. All of the evidence has already been gathered, Vice Minister. Namely that NAC profit-sharing bribe. I appreciate this, General Darlton. Bartley said. With this we can finally sweep away the parasites that are sucking Prince Clovis dry. HMMP, there are more rats than expected, and all of them are confused by Princess Euphemia's special zone, aren't they? The next day was more than a success for Princess Euphemia. The stadium had been set up in record time, and countless people had all applied for it. She was honestly never more excited to actually do paperwork, especially if this meant finally mending peace with the Autobots and Black Knights. The paperwork took most of the day and into night as Euphemia also had to make some in-person adjustments at the stadium in Mount Fuji. Once it was done, she was escorted home not just by Suzaku, but also Dreadwing as the two rode in his jet mode. Over 200,000 people have already applied to join the Japan Special Zone. Suzaku said. And that's just from today. The way things look, that number is only going to grow. Thanks to you, Suzaku. Euphemia smiled at him. Because of what you represent to the Japanese people, everyone is rallying. They believe in what we're creating together. No, you're giving me too much credit, Suzaku tried to be modest. You are receiving the appropriate amount of credit, Suzaku. Dreadwing spoke to him. Those people who follow you based on your actions. You have shown that no matter what your origins, you can rise in the world despite the obstacles they face. Suzaku tried to hide a smile. Dreadwing, However, the Seeker became serious as he spoke. Euphemia, while I am proud that you have taken such an initiative, you must also be wary that there are those who do not approve of your actions, and many of them hail from Britannia. Euphemia's smile faded. Trust me, I know. I'm not foolish to think that everyone is going to support this, but I can think of many people who will, among them are likely Optimus and Zero. Are you really sure about that? Suzaku sounded skeptical. After everything that's happened, Optimus Prime would not do anything that would put those people in danger. Dreadwing spoke immediately. He may have been your enemy once, Suzaku, but I know him, and he will never try anything underhanded. He's right, Suzaku. Euphemia agreed. I may have met him only once, but I can tell that Optimus Prime is a kind and noble being. And Zero, while he may have done some things, he's not a bad person. Maybe you could consider the reason why he was fighting, before jumping to conclusions. And besides, you've seen him and how he acts to protect people. He's even saved my life, and yours, more than once. Suzaku said nothing but couldn't help but agree. Whenever he felt he had Zero pegged as a terrorist, or Optimus as an enemy, they went ahead and proved him wrong, as they have shown to obviously protect their own forces and have even gone out of their way to avoid putting civilians in danger, even Britannians. Knowing that, he couldn't help but think about what Colin told him on Kaname Island. Maybe he did indeed misjudge them. Dreadwing soon began to slowly descend toward the ground as he made his way toward Euphemia's private estate, where her bodyguards were waiting for her. Once Dreadwing landed, the cockpit opened up as Suzaku helped Euphemia out before Dreadwing transformed into his normal Cybertronian form. The two bodyguards were immediately on guard once they saw him. It's okay, he's with me. Euphemia told them, prompting her guards to stand down. She then turned to face Suzaku and Dreadwing. Thank you both for everything and all your support. I'll definitely be counting on it in the future. Yes, Your High. Suzaku was about to salute her. Not like that. Euphemia stopped him. Suzaku dropped the formalities before he smiled at her. Yes. And of course, you have my support as well, Yuffie. Dreadwing told her with a smile of his own. Euphemia smiled at both of them before she quickly went up to Suzaku and gave him a kiss on the cheek, much to his surprise. She gave one final smile before walking into her estate, with her bodyguards next to her. Suzaku felt the cheek where she had just kissed him before looking toward his hand with a smile. He then glanced up to Dreadwing, who had something of a smirk on his face. "What are you looking at?" Suzaku asked in an almost playful tone. "Nothing." Dreadwing replied in a similar tone before he transformed back into his vehicle mode, prompting Suzaku to step inside before they flew off. Once inside, Euphemia was already in her own private room, with her bodyguards in the hallway outside. She looked at her watch and saw that it was 11 p.m. exactly, the time that Lelouch said he'd meet her. Though she was uncertain how he'd get there without her guards noticing. However, she did not expect a small ground bridge portal to open up right in front of her, and Lelouch stepped out, clad in his Zero attire, but he didn't wear his mask. The portal closed behind him as he stepped into the room. "Well, you certainly do know how to make an entrance, Lelouch." Euphemia smiled. "Yuffie, why didn't you tell me about the special zone sooner?" Lelouch got right to the point. Her smile faded as she answered her brother. "I intended to, I was going to tell you in Nunnally when I was at Ashford, but, you know what happened once everyone else saw me. And with the press there, I just figured it was the best time to announce it." Lelouch sighed as he pressed his fingers against his face. "I really wish you would have told us about this in the first place. And I'm sorry about that, I didn't mean to cause you any trouble." Yuffie replied. "Nunnally, is she?" "She's in the Ark as we speak," Lelouch assured. "She's safe and out of reach from the Decepticons and Britannian forces." This caused Yuffie to sigh in relief. "But still, have you even considered the consequences of what would happen from this?" Lelouch continued. "I know you're trying to help us, and Optimus and I both appreciate that, but you have to think about the results. Do you really think our father would go along with something like this? And that's not even considering what Megatron could do. Optimus told us, what he did to Cybertron." "I know that," Euphemia argued. "I'm not stupid, Lelouch." "I never said you were," he quickly said. "I know what Megatron is capable of, and I know how horrible our father is. You don't have to remind me about that," Euphemia explained. "That's why I invited you, Optimus, and the rest of the Autobots to the zone. I plan to reveal the Decepticons there. I'll announce their presence, their crimes, and their intent. I already told Schneisel about them and he even supported my plan. Once the world knows what the Decepticons are, and the kind of threat they represent, I'm sure we can find a way to unite everyone and push them back. Isn't that what you and Optimus have been trying to do? And what happens if they, or someone from Britannia, try something there?" Lelouch questioned. "All 7 Knights of the Round are here, and there's no way they're not going to be present here. They answer to our father directly and he could easily order them to lay waste to the entire zone, even with you there." "Not all of them," Euphemia said. "I know Nonette, she's a good person, and you even told me about her being Ray's knight. I'm sure she'll side with us. And, I know that the other knights answer to our father, which is another reason I want you and the Autobots there. If our father or Megatron tries something, I know you and Optimus will do everything you can to protect those people. Even Suzaku and Dreadwing will be there to help." Lelouch looked to his half-sister in surprise, clearly not expecting such a well-thought-out argument from her. "Look Lelouch, I know I can be naive sometimes, and maybe I might not think everything through," Euphemia continued. "But trust me, I thought this through. I know who we're up against, and I want to do everything in my power. This is what I can do, and I've done everything I can to make sure it's safe." Though he could tell that she actually did think this through, there were still some potential consequences that could result. "Yuffie, if and when something goes wrong, we might not be able to protect everyone. I ended up learning the hard way that we can't save everybody no matter how much we try." Yuffie's smile faded, as she then realized just what her brother went through. He must have gone through quite a bit of pain since starting this rebellion. Which only further strengthened her resolve to help him. "We'll be there," Lelouch told her. "Optimus and I already spoke to the other Autobots and Black Knights, and our first priority is to protect the people, and that's exactly what we're going to do." Euphemia smiled. "I know you will. I have to go." Lelouch said as he looked at his watch before accessing his communications. Fix it, I'm done here. I need a ground bridge. A portal then opened up behind Lelouch and he was about to step in, but Euphemia quickly ran to give him a hug, which he was eager to return. Be careful, Euphi, he told his sister. I love you. I love you, too. She replied before they parted ways and he walked into the ground bridge portal, which closed a second after. Euphemia walked out into the hallway, once her business was concluded. I'm sorry about that, I just need, however, she was surprised to find her bodyguards weren't there. She looked across the hall to see the door on the other end was slightly open. Curiosity taking control, Euphi walked across the hall and slowly opened the door. Hello. However, once the door was opened, she gave an audible gasp at seeing her guards, or what's left of them, butchered, blood-stained across the floor. She was about to scream when suddenly, she was pinned to the wall by a web-like substance. The webbing covered most of her body, up to her mouth to prevent her from screaming. She looked across from her to not only see a large gaping hole in the wall leading outside, but the smirking arachnid before she shot some more web to completely cover the rest of her face. The next day, the Special Administrative Zone of Japan is the first attempt of its kind in Britannia and was personally proposed by Her Highness, Princess Euphemia, who has also personally invited Zero and the Autobots to join her. This youthful inspiration was an idea from her school years. Nina heard the radio broadcast as she was huddled up in Ashford's storage room with the Ganymede. If Princess Euphemia thinks it's a good idea, then even I have too. Ironhide's vehicle mode stood outside Oji's residence as he also listened to the same radio broadcast via his own radio. The NAC, led by Kirihara Industries, gives its wholehearted support to the plan. Ironhide then turned the radio off. Yeah, only after Lelouch spoke to her and he told us what she had planned. He thought to himself, but, I gotta give the girl credit. She invited us to protect the people if Megatron tried something. Still though, anything can happen. Ironhide. He heard Ogi call to him but was surprised to see the amnesic Valletta, no going by the name Chigusa, walking outside behind him. It's all right, she knows. What? Ironhide questioned, in a tone indicating he didn't approve. I told her about you, and me and, even about her past. Ogi rubbed the back of his neck nervously. The door to Ironhide's vehicle mode opened. Get in, he ordered. Ogi winced at his tone, expecting a verbal lashing from his Autobot friend and comrade as he got into the truck, followed by Chigusa before he drove into the streets and spoke to the pair. And what could have possessed you to tell her pretty much everything? Ironhide questioned, getting right to it. Well, with what's going on with the SAS, and how Megatron might try something, I got a little worried so, Ogi tried to explain it as best he could. You should have told me what you were going to do before you opened your big mouth. Ironhide scolded. Ironhide was it. Chigusa spoke. Please don't be too hard on Konami. So, you're on those kinds of terms, huh? Ironhide questioned, noting how she used Ogi's first name, causing Ogi himself to look away with a small blush. But, he just wants to help, that's all. Chigusa said. So, how much do you know? Ironhide asked. Well, he told me about you and the other Autobots fighting the Decepticons, and about your home, Chigusa said. He even told me about my past. And you don't remember any of that? Ironhide questioned. No, I don't. Chigusa answered truthfully. While the veteran Autobot wasn't a living lie detector like Soundwave, he could still read people and could tell that she was speaking the truth. I wasn't the best person, was I? No, you really weren't. Ironhide said bluntly. But I want to be better. Chigusa said, her face becoming a bit more resolved. I may not remember but, I know I've done a lot of bad things. Whoever I was, I don't want to be that person again. I was an enemy to you, but you let Konami look after me, she then turned to Ogi. You took me into your home, an enemy, and you cared for me ever since. I want to repay that. I want to be someone who helps people, not hurt them. So, please, even if it's something small, I want to contribute. I want to join the Black Knights. Ogi looked in honest surprise, and Ironhide almost pulled over in shock over hearing that. You want to join us? Ogi stuttered. Yes, I might not be a soldier, anymore. But I still want to help. Please. She bowed her head. Ogi wasn't sure how to answer at first. Well, Ironhide, what do you think? The Autobot veteran sighed. You'll have to take it up with Optimus. If she does end up joining us though, you are responsible for whatever happens. Even she relapses, and tries something, you know what you have to do, right? It wasn't as if Ogi was not expecting that, he did understand the risk. But he wasn't sure if he could actually do it. However, his thoughts were interrupted as Chigusa grabbed his hand. Konami, it's okay. She told him. I don't want to be that person anymore, but if I do, become her again, go ahead and do what you have to do. Protect your friends, even from me. Though he was still hesitant, hearing her voice her resolve earlier as well as her admitting that she was fine with what they would have to do if she ended up relapsing, gave him a resolve of his own. Alright, but I won't let you become that person again. Even if you do get your memories back, I'll do what I can to help you. You're a good person, Chigusa. She smiled at him. Thank you, Konami. Ahem. Ironhide coughed. That's nice and all, but please try not to make a human baby, at least not inside me. That caused both of their faces to turn red as they heard the veteran Autobot snicker. The Special Administrative Zone of Japan. Bismarck acknowledged as he, and all 7 knights of the round were gathered around a table inside the settlement's royal palace. Euphemia certainly seems serious about it. I'm completely against it, Dorothea stated. This goes against everything Britannia stands for. We should halt its progress and order it to be torn down. Why though? Gino asked. Actually, seems like a good idea. At least this way we can stop all the fighting. Fighting will still occur, Anya said robotically. Even with the proposed truce to the Autobots and Black Knights, there will likely be other parties that won't accept this. That's true, even among the royal family. Monica added. We've even received requests from Guinevere and Carney that we force Euphemia to stop the construction of the zone immediately. I got a better idea. Luciano said with a smirk. When it's all built up, and all the rats are present, we go in and wreck the whole place. Absolutely not, Nonette exclaimed. We'd kill countless people by doing that. They're 11s. Some of them might even be supporters of our enemies. Dorothea stated. If they end up killed, it's less trouble for us. And what about Princess Euphemia? Gino asked. She'll be there too. Are you saying we should kill her as well? I agree, we cannot just attack the special zone without reason. Monica also said. Oh, have the Knights of 3 and 12 gotten soft? Luciano mocked. I expected as much from little Weinberg here, considering he had extra help in getting that robe. That earned a glare from Gino as the Vampire of Britannia continued. But you, pretty little Monica, are the leader of the Emperor's Royal Guard. You should remember your place. This coming from the man who joined the Knights just to kill people. Nonette glared at him. Justice is given equally, Monica said firmly. If there are criminals in the zone, I will see to it they are punished. But I won't target innocent people, even if they aren't Britannian. Dorothea scoffed. Looks like being at that commoner school has made you soft. She told the Knight of 12. I've heard they've even voiced their support to Zero and those infernal Autobots. Hey, they got freedom of speech. Gino said. Not to mention there was that incident where 2 of the Autobots protected the school from a terrorist attack. Anya added. Exactly. Gino agreed. Oh, well if you love them so much, why don't you just join them? Luciano mocked. That's enough. Bismarck slammed his hand on the table to halt their arguing. We will be attending the event, and we will have our nightmares present as well. But we will not attack unless ordered to. That is final. Is that understood? Yes, sir. All of them said, albeit some more reluctantly than others. However, none of them appeared to notice Nonette deep in thought as she only had one thing on her mind. Yuffie, Kaiserin, no matter what happens, I'll protect you both. I swear it. Yuffie really is amazing, isn't she? Schneisel asked as he spoke with Cornelia in her own private office. Now all the terrorist groups in Area 11 will lose their popular support and fall apart. Public order will finally be stabilized. I personally oppose this, Cornelia stated firmly. But since you understand the situation, you've sent Darlton to advise her, have you not? Schneisel asked. Or, is this because of the fight you had with her recently and you can't bring yourself to face her now? That has nothing to do with what's going on now. Cornelia quickly replied, hiding the shame in her eyes. Her actions go directly against the policies of the Empire. But it's not just that. You're concerned the Decepticons would try something? Schneisel asked. I wouldn't worry. I've made arrangements for the Knights of the Round to attend the ceremony, with their nightmares. I sincerely doubt Megatron would be so bold to stage an open attack on live television with the Empire's best soldiers present. She also invited Zero and the Autobots to join her. Cornelia said, her eyes narrowing as she mentioned them. All the more reason why Megatron won't attack. Schneisel said. He's smart enough to know he can't afford a mutual enemy with both Britannia and the Autobots. Your mom signed you two up for the special zone? Rye asked in surprise as he, Colin, and Shirley walked through the settlement in their casual attire. Yeah, she did, Colin confirmed. Once she saw the announcement, she didn't waste any time. Well, that's good, isn't it? Shirley asked. Provided the Decepticons and Britannia don't try to mess it up. Rye muttered angrily. It's not just that, Colin said. It's because, well, if something happens, I might have to tell her what I've been doing. That took them by surprise. Wait, she doesn't know about you? Shirley asked. You mean that her daughter, her only remaining child, is risking her life fighting alongside alien robots against an empire that controls 1/3 of the world, and killed her own son, while also fighting an army of evil alien robots led by a genocidal psychopath? Colin exclaimed. Shirley was caught off guard by her friend's angry tone but did see the point she made. Okay, that does make sense. Colin appeared to have calmed down but wasn't done. If I just tell her, she might be so shocked she could go back to refrain. She's been doing so well, I don't want her to back to that. Well, we can help. Rye offered as he put a supportive hand on Colin's shoulder. And with Nunnally now living on the Ark, she can help too. I mean, she took everything Lelouch told her really well. Plus, you even said how much your mom gushed over her. And, maybe if she gets to know RC and Cliffjumper, she might actually get along with them. Shirley offered as well. I'm sure your mom will be just fine with the Autobots. Though she was still nervous about it, this did help to ease it a bit as Colin offered her friends a smile. Thanks guys, I don't care about your special zone. The three of them turned down the street to see a Britannian noble beating down a Japanese youth with flyers for the SAS with a cane. I don't care about support. I'd sooner die than sign that. You think you're equal to us, now. The lower class should simply obey their betters without any backtalk. Wanna back that up, asshole? The noble looked towards the angry Rye as he walked toward him. What did you say? You heard me, you arrogant piece of shit. Rye exclaimed. You think beating on someone smaller than you makes you strong. Why not pick on someone your own size? A Britannian civilian tried to walk forward and halt his advance. Hold it, schoolboy, just back off. Rye activated his Geass. Maybe you should just go home, sir. The second Ray's words reached the man's ears, a red ring formed in both his eyes. Yeah, okay, I will. He then began to walk home, much to the nobleman's shock. What did you say to him? Come back at once. What's wrong, Mr. Fancy Noble? Rye stated as he stood in front of the recovering Japanese youth protectively. Too afraid of solving your problems by yourself. I've met some pretty bad people before, but at least they can back up their talk. You're just all talk and no action, aren't you? Why you? The nobleman growled. What's wrong? You had no problem hitting this guy. Rye continued. Why not try to hit me with that fancy cane of yours? But the second you do, I'm gonna snap it in half and most of your bones. So, go ahead and try it, you worthless piece of. Rye however stopped as he felt his Geass activate, which he was quick to turn off. Okay, I think that's enough. Shirley said as she and Colin got in between them to try and prevent something from starting. She then turned to the nobleman. Maybe you should just go home, sir. What? Who do you think? Just go. Colin exclaimed. If you don't, I might just call the cops. Deciding he had enough, the nobleman gave a scoff as he walked away. Once he was gone, Shirley went toward the Japanese youth and helped him up. Are you okay? Yeah, thanks. Colin then pulled Rye away from the scene and spoke to him. Rye, what happened back there? You looked like you were ready to snap that guy's neck. Rye appeared to have calmed down a bit. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me, he felt his head. Are you okay? She asked him with concern. I don't know, Rye confessed honestly. Just seeing that guy reminded me of VV. And just the thought of him makes me so mad. I get it, and you got every right to be. Colin told him. But there's a time and place for that, and right now isn't it? Yeah, Rai shook his head. Also, I think I felt my Geass turn on, even though I wasn't trying to. Colin had a serious expression on her face. Maybe it's because of that thought elevator thing. Lelouch has the same thing with his Geass because of that. Rai surely walked up, after helping the Japanese youth along his way. Maybe you should talk with Ratchet and CC about your Geass. Like Lelouch, I don't think anyone would want that power going out of control. You're right, Rai said. I can't go through that, not again. He felt his hand across his face as Colin and Shirley looked toward him with sympathy as they knew exactly what he was talking about. Let's get back to the arc. Later that evening, Darlton and Kirihara were both at Mt. Fuji, looking over the settlement as the Britannian general spoke to one of the heads of Kyoto. The NAC, or rather Kyoto as it's known among the terrorists, tomorrow, after the ceremony, why don't you dissolve your group and leave Mt. Fuji? We can talk about a legal agreement if you hand over the mining operation to us peacefully. You sound pretty confident, but you haven't won anything yet. Kirihara commented. Darlton smirked. Whether Zero comes tomorrow or not doesn't matter. With this, that man's downfall is assured. Are you sure it's Zero you need to be concerned with? Kirihara asked. Princess Euphemia's actions go directly against the policies placed by your emperor. How can you be certain he won't retaliate? After all, he had no issues with killing Prince Lelouch and Princess Nunnally. Darlton's smirk faded. The emperor did no such thing. It was your people. Oh, drop the act, General Darlton. You know it's true, Kirihara continued. Those two were exiled to Japan simply because their mother was murdered, and the boy demanded justice for it. We treated them with respect and tried to make their stay as comfortable as possible. It only became impossible, once your empire invaded. Your precious emperor declared open war on Japan, knowing his children would likely die in the process. That being said, how can you be so certain he won't try something similar with Princess Euphemia? If and when he does, what will you do? Will you prove yourself a loyal soldier to Britannia and execute her yourself? Or will you try to protect her and be labeled as a traitor? Darlton glared at the old man as Kirihara knew he hit the nail right on the coffin. And it's not just your emperor. The old man continued. There might be others not affiliated with your side or ours that have plans of your own. So, I'd watch your back if I were you. Euphemia's eyes slowly began to flicker open. She felt something keeping her completely restrained. She tried to groan or even speak, but something prevented her from speaking. When her eyes fully opened, she looked around to find herself in a massive underground cavern with barely any light. She tried to move but was unable to and looked down in shock to see she was not only completely suspended high in the air but was almost completely cocooned in a web-like substance that covered her from her feet up to her neck. The same webbing also covered her mouth to prevent her from speaking. Yuffie attempted to struggle in her restraints but couldn't even cause the web to budge an inch. Awake, are we? She looked in shock to see a familiar-looking female Decepticon slowly walk toward her, on the ceiling via her spider legs. Glad to see the sedative finally wore off. I'd hate for you to miss even a second of what we have planned. Euphemia tried to speak as she saw the She-Con slowly descend toward the ground in front of her. Oh, that's right, we haven't been properly introduced, have we? My name is Arachnid, and as you can probably guess, I am a Decepticon. Arachnid gestured to the familiar-looking emblem on her chest. Oh, don't worry, nothing is going to happen to you, yet. Megatron has exaltedly ordered that you be kept alive, at least until our work is done. Yuffie's eyes widened in terror. This was Megatron's doing. How? Why? What was he planning? You know, you really should appreciate what we're about to do. Arachnid continued as she loomed closer to Yuffie and brought her fingers closer towards Yuffie, which only terrified her even more. It's no secret how much you've despised Britannia, I myself am more than a little annoyed with it also. But don't worry, because I promise, within 24 hours or so, all that progress dear old daddy preached about is going to come to a grinding halt. The Nemesis. Megatron stood on the bridge of his warship as Starscream, Soundwave, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Knockout, Breakdown, and even Hardshell were all present and making their reports to Megatron, along with Shockwave and Schneisel as their faces were brought up on the bridge's main screen. Lord Megatron, it pleases me to inform you that our ranks have just increased even further. Starscream informed. My Seeker Armada has arrived at our vessel and await our command. And as you requested, the Insecticon hive has been divided to your specifications. Hardshell has also informed. Half of the hive is on board the Nemesis. Thundercracker said, while the other half is with Arachnid and our royal guest on Kaname Island on standby. Excellent. Megatron replied. Shockwave, how is progress with Orange? Everything is prepared, Lord Megatron. The Decepticon scientist reported. The subject has been thoroughly integrated into the unit Schneisel has provided. I have also made my own modifications to this, Siegfried, and it promises to yield satisfactory results. Happy to be of service. Schneisel said with a smile. And I have seen to it the zone has been prepared on schedule, nobody has even noticed Euphemia's absence. Why would they? Skywarp questioned. She's a sub-viceroy, it's not like she's important. Where is Euphy being kept, anyway? Schneisel asked. In a secure location. Megatron told him. Understood. But what exactly is your plan, Lord Megatron? The Britannian prince asked. You've already been given your instructions, Schneisel. Megatron replied. Proceed with them and our victory is assured. And I would just like to be informed on how this will all start. Schneisel said. I already know the plan and I will proceed, you just haven't told me how it will begin. If you needed to know that, I would have told you. Megatron insisted as his optics narrowed. You know all you need to, now proceed. But if Euphemia is absent from the zone, Schneisel tried to say something only to be interrupted. Schneisel, trust that we have this covered. Starscream stepped up. If our plan is to be accomplished, we can't afford to bicker amongst ourselves. Leave the kickoff to us and proceed with how you've been instructed. I promise you won't regret it. Schneisel's smile faded, but he nodded with acceptance. Of course. Farwell. His screen cut off. You sure it's a good idea to keep him around? Breakdown asked. I know the plan, but that guy reminds me too much of Starscream here. I'll pretend that was a compliment, Breakdown. Starscream cast a slight glare in the large Decepticon's direction. Lord Megatron, can Schneisel be trusted? Knockout asked. He is necessary for our next step. Megatron replied. But should he attempt anything, he will be properly dealt with. So, is he gonna be the only Britannian to side with us? Skywarp asked. I get that most aren't gonna have a choice, but I can think of a few who might actually want to sign up. That Vampire Knight guy looks like he might fit in. I must advise against that. Shockwave stated. His psychological profile has too many similarities with Arachnid. Should those two meet, it could create chaos and even dissension among our own ranks. Bringing Luciano Bradley into our cause would be most illogical. Agreed, I have more than enough wildcards already. Megatron said. Speaking of which, what about Kururugi and Dreadwing? Thundercracker asked. There's no way they're gonna side with us after this. Perhaps not, but considering what we are about to gain, I'd say their defection would be a small price to pay. Megatron dismissed before turning to his communications officer. Is your latest toy prepared, Soundwave? The silent Decepticon nodded as it gestured towards the door to the bridge, which opened to reveal what appeared to be someone who looked identical to Euphemia Lee Britannia. However, one look into her otherwise identical eyes, and one could tell that this was not the real third princess. The Ark. At the same time, Lelouch had sat on the couch in the living quarters of the bridge, unable to get some sleep. He and Optimus already gave the Autobots and Black Knights their instructions and it seemed near foolproof. He was even present as CC and Ratchet overlooked Ray's Geass to see it was growing stronger, much like his own. However, unlike Lelouch's Geass, Rai was unable to develop any kind of filter like Lelouch's contact lenses, so CC did what she could to suppress it, even though it wasn't a permanent solution. They even brought the amnesiac Valletta, or rather Chigusa, onto the Ark, though Lelouch wasn't too happy along with that. Along with Ironhide, it didn't seem like anything they couldn't fix if things were to go wrong. Everything seemed to be in place should something happen at the SAS, yet, why did he still feel so uneasy? Lelouch. He glanced to see Optimus walk toward him. Is something the matter? I couldn't sleep. Lelouch replied. So much is about to happen tomorrow, and I don't even know what it all is. I get this sinking feeling, like something terrible is just over the horizon. Or maybe I'm just being paranoid. No, you are correct to be cautious. Optimus told him. The Special Administrative Zone can serve to help our cause, and yet, it also has the potential to be a catastrophe, should others try to take advantage of it. There's been no statement from Charles that he's either supporting or denouncing Yuffie's actions. Lelouch said. And we haven't seen any sign of the Decepticons since the announcement. A part of me is thinking they're probably hiding because they're worried the world will unite against them. But then again, that's probably just wishful thinking. I once had similar thoughts myself. Optimus replied. But Charles Z. Britannia does not seem like the kind of man who would permit this. And I know Megatron would try to view the SAS as an advantage he can use, though I remain uncertain as to how he intends to use it. I'm scared, Lelouch confessed. I'm scared of what will happen, but I think I'm most scared for Yuffie right now. I'm scared for Yuffie, too. Both Optimus and Lelouch turned in minor surprise to see Bumblebee walking onto the bridge, while also carrying Nunnally carefully in his hand. Nunnally, what are you? Lelouch did not expect to see her like this. She couldn't sleep either, so she asked me to bring her to see you. Bumblebee explained as he set Nunnally down toward Lelouch, who helped his sister to sit on the couch next to him. I'm scared too, Lelouch. Nunnally began. I'm scared of what could happen to Yuffie, the girl smiled. But I know you'll do what you have to. You, Optimus, Rai, Bumblebee, Colin, Sarah, all of you, I know you'll do the right thing. I believe in you, all of you. Nunnally, Lelouch didn't know what to say at first, but hearing her praise, while it was greatly appreciated, there was also something on his mind that told him that maybe he hasn't truly earned that. Optimus, Bumblebee, can I ask you two something? Of course. Optimus nodded. What is it? Bumblebee asked. Lelouch struggled to get the words out. Am I like Megatron? That took all of them, especially Nunnally, by surprise. When I heard about what you two tried to do, and make Cybertron better, Optimus, I couldn't help but draw parallels between the two of you, and myself and Suzaku. You and Suzaku both offered to change the system through peace, but Megatron wanted to do it by force, and that's what I've been doing. He clenched his fists as eyes became filled with emotional turmoil. I've always been afraid of becoming like my father, but I'm worried now, I might end up like Megatron, who's even worse. Lelouch, Nunnally did not expect her brother to speak like this. She had felt there was something inside that was bothering him, but nothing like this. There is truth in what you say. Optimus began. When we first met, I did see some similarities between you and Megatron, many of us did. However, at your core, the two of you couldn't be more different. Lelouch looked towards Optimus in honest shock as he continued to speak. Even when you first allied with us, despite your righteous anger towards Britannia, you sought to end the prejudice and bloodshed that had been prolonged for years, all to create a world where your sister could find happiness. Optimus continued. Nunnally had always been your first priority, and your affection toward her was never once in question. And when you made your first appearance to the world as Zero, you acted to save Suzaku from his court-martial simply because he was your friend, nothing more than that. Yes, you have made mistakes, but you have shown that you are willing to accept responsibility for them and a desire to make amends, allowing yourself to become more open and trusting of others, not just through your words, but your actions. You became a hero that others could rally behind. Even knowing your identity as a former prince, the Black Knights still choose to follow you because they believe in you, as do I and my fellow Autobots. That is what separates you from Megatron, who only ever fought for power, nothing more. You have proven yourself time and time again, Lelouch, and I know you will keep doing so in the future, and you will make this world a better place. That is something I truly believe with all my spark. Upon not just hearing the encouraging words from Optimus, but also seeing the genuine smile on his face, Lelouch couldn't stop tears of joy from forming in his eyes. He was even further surprised by Nunnally, who reached out to caress his cheek with a smile. Optimus is right, Lelouch. Nunnally told her brother sincerely. You're nothing like Megatron. You've not only taken care of me for so long, but you've made plenty of friends who trust you. And I trust you too. I know I've already said this, but I love and believe in you, Lelouch. That'll never change. Got that right. Even Bumblebee spoke in bleeps as he approached his friend. I'm not as good at speeches as Optimus here, but I've seen how much you've grown. No matter what happens, I'm your friend and I'll be with you every step of the way. Nunnally, Lelouch could not voice the sincere gratitude he felt toward all of them. His father figure in Optimus, his little sister Nunnally, and his friend and comrade Bumblebee. Genuine tears of joy continued to flow down his face as he knew he was surrounded by those he could trust completely, and he may have finally found a family that he can truly belong to. Thank you, I promise you, I won't let any of you down. Nunnally gave her brother a hug, which he was quick to return. This caused both Optimus and even Bumblebee to smile, the latter smiling under his faceplate. After a minute or two, the two siblings pulled apart. Hey, Lelouch, Nunnally asked her brother. Yeah, he replied, calming down with a smile still on his face. I know it might be pretty late, but can I please talk to Yuffie? Nunnally asked. I haven't spoken to her since the school festival and I'd like to talk to her still. Sure thing, I don't think she'll mind. Lelouch took out the special phone he had to call only Euphemia. Though he told her it was to be used only for serious situations, he figured he could make an exception this once. He placed the call, however, there was no response. Even after waiting a few minutes, there was still no response. This caused Lelouch's smile to fade as he looked in concern, a feeling that he shared with Nunnally, Bumblebee, and even Optimus. Something wasn't right. The next day. This was it, this was the day of the ceremony of the Special Administrative Zone of Japan. Virtually everyone in the country, from all those of Britannian nationality, to every Japanese individual who did not attend the zone, even those at Ashford Academy, those in the student council including Rivals, Millie, and Nina, all of them were watching the television or listening to the radio broadcast of the ceremony. And it wasn't just Japan watching and listening. Other nations, including the other superpowers of the EU and the Chinese Federation, had their eyes set on this event. Needless to say, the entire world was watching. We're bringing you live coverage from the stadium where the inaugural ceremony will be held for the Special Administrative Zone of Japan. The place is already packed full of 11s, sorry, I mean Japanese. And those unable to get in are gathered outside the stadium. It was true, the stadium was filled with countless people. All were eager to receive what they were promised with the inauguration of the zone. Of course, there was military personnel on guard, not just Sutherland's, but the personal nightmares of the Knights of the Round. Nonette, Gino, Anya, and Monica had their own respective nightmares of the Galician, Tristian, Mordred, and Florence, all of which were equipped with a float system. But what stood out the most was the appearance of the other nightmares owned by the remaining 3 Knights of the Round. The Percival, piloted by Luciano Bradley, seemed somewhat bulky compared to the others, but not as bulky as the Mordred. It had a light purplish color to it with a darker purple spikes on the shoulders, golden kneecaps, a shield in its left hand, with a claw-like attachment on its right arm. Up next was the Palamedes, owned by Dorothy Ernst. It was a dark blue nightmare, with gold-armored chest plate and shoulder pads, a built-in gun attachment on its left arm with a sheathed MVS blade on its side. Finally, the nightmare that stood as the tallest among all others, was the Galahad, piloted by Bismarck Waldstein himself. This massive nightmare was primarily white with black armor near its chest. It had a white cape flowing down its back with a red color on the inside, and it carried a massive MVS blade on its back. But it wasn't just nightmares present as well. Dreadwing himself was also there in the flesh, standing close toward the stage where Britannian nobles and others were present as well. Though everyone in the stadium knew he wasn't a nightmare, they all seemed a bit on edge in regard to him, mostly because he was one of those giant robots they saw on the news of the prison brawl some time ago. The fact that he was among the Britannian military showed that he meant no harm, however, so a panic was not in place. Those gathered in the seats on the stage of the stadium were several Britannian nobles, including General Darlton, Kirihara, Suzaku Kururugi in his knight uniform, and of course, Princess Euphemia. But, nobody there had the slightest idea that the Princess Euphemia that sat before them was really an imposter. The Nemesis, Megatron, Starscream, and Soundwave stood on the bridge as they saw on the main screen the broadcast of the ceremony as well, but not through the cameras, through the eyes of imposter Euphemia. Makeshift would have been proud. Starscream commented with a sneer. It was through his design that we were able to construct this pretender drone that can easily pass for humans. Those fools have no idea what is standing right in front of them. He commented with a snicker. And unlike with Makeshift, this drone is not sentient. Megatron said. Through Soundwave, I can control it. Its actions are my own, everything I say, it speaks. A perfect puppet. Arachnid's cave. The real Euphemia, still bound and gagged in the webbing, watched the live broadcast of ceremony from a screen built into the cavern wall as Arachnid loomed close to her. You look confused. Arachnid observed the princess. How can you be there if you're here? Let me make it simple for you, that is basically a drone disguised as you. Why would we go through such an effort, you're wondering? You'll see. Arachnid sneered. Just a few more minutes, that's when it all ends, or should I say, when it begins. Euphemia had no idea what was about to happen, but something in her gut told her that it wasn't going to be good. All she could do was pray that Lelouch, Suzaku, Optimus, or Dreadwing will be able to identify this imposter and thwart whatever plot the Decepticons had intended. The Ark. While Kirihara was attending the ceremony, the rest of Kyoto, including Kagaya and Katase, all watched the broadcast from a television screen in a private meeting quarters built specifically for them. Chigusa sat in her own room that Ogi sat for her as she listened to the handheld radio. From the bridge of the Ark, Shirley, Nunnally, Sayoko, and Rakshata sat in the living quarters along with Fixit as they and Ratchet watched from the main screen of the bridge as well. Princess Euphemia, it's time. Darlton spoke to the Pretender, still not aware it was an imposter. Right. The Pretender Euphemia answered, or rather Megatron answered through the Pretender, with its voice sounding identical to the real Euphemia. It stood up and was ready to begin. However, everyone in the stadium, be they Japanese civilian, or Britannian noble and soldier, even Dreadwing, looked in surprise to see a ground bridge portal open along the eastern side of the stadium. From out of the portal came the vehicle modes of Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead, Cliffjumper, Wheeljack, and Ironhide, and even the Gawain, with Zero standing on the large Nightmare's shoulder. CC was currently in the pilot's seat. Once the portal closed, the Autobots transformed to reveal themselves. The second the Japanese citizens all saw them, every single one of them cheered and shouted words of praise and thanks towards who they rightly viewed as the saviors and defenders of Japan. Among the Japanese populace who looked in wonder, RC spotted the mother of her partner, Colin, in the seats on the ground. However, while there was praise among the Japanese, most Britannian nobles looked at them with disgust. In regards to the Knights of the Round, Dorothea glared while Gino had an impressed smirk, Anya and Monica had neutral expressions, while Nonetz was of concern, particularly for Kaiserin who was nowhere to be seen. So those are the Autobots, they don't look so tough. Luciano was ready to kill at a moment's notice, but he held himself back as per Bismarck's previous orders. So, that's my target. Bismarck set his sights on Optimus Prime, whose size stood on equal footing with his own Nightmare. There was a part of him that was eager to test if he was a worthy opponent, but he would not act. Now was not the time for a duel. They really came. Dreadwing observed. Zero, Optimus, Suzaku muttered as he had mixed feelings about seeing them again. You accept that you've lost. Darlton muttered with a smirk. Well, look who showed up. Cornelia watched the broadcast with a small scoff as she watched the broadcast from her own mobile base a couple of miles outside the zone, alongside several officers including Guilford and Bartley. Schneisel himself watched from his personal office the royal palace of the settlement, though he had no idea what to expect. What are you planning, Megatron? How will this support us? They've arrived, it would seem. Starscream observed. Should we move now, Lord Megatron? Not yet. Megatron responded before Soundwave tuned him back into the Pretender and he put on the act of Euphemia once more. Zero, Optimus Prime, and Valiant Autobots. Welcome to the Special Administrative Zone. Pretender Euphi seemingly welcomed them. Greetings, Euphemia Lee Britannia. Zero greeted back as the Gawain kneeled down, allowing him to step to the ground as he walked closer to the stage. I wish to request an audience with you. Just with me? Pretender Euphemia asked. Yes, with you alone. Zero confirmed. Optimus and Bumblebee shared knowing glances with each other. Last night, Lelouch and Nunnally tried to call Euphemia via the private line 4 times, and there was no response each time. They even had Fixit trace the signal, only to find that they couldn't locate it. Lelouch told them that the signal could not be traced if it were turned off, so Nunnally assumed that she was simply asleep, but Lelouch then tried to call her again earlier in the morning before the ceremony, still no response. They told the other Autobots about this, and that was the reason they came, to protect the people, because this whole thing seemed to reek of a trap. Bumblebee even brought the Polarity Gauntlet while RC had the Immobilizer. Before, Lelouch had a habit of letting his guard down when he felt the battle was won. Optimus thought to himself. But since then, he has learned to anticipate when things go wrong, and his instincts have become sharper because of that. His instincts are telling him that something might be wrong with Euphemia, and I feel it as well. Lloyd and Cecile also saw the broadcast from the Avalon's main screen. I'm afraid something's going to happen. We should have gone there like I thought. Cecile voiced her concern. What for? Lloyd dismissed. It's not as if we had a choice in the matter. Everyone said that if Lancelot was there waiting, Zero and the Autobots wouldn't show. Once on the stage, a few soldiers ran Zero through a quick search to see he had no weapons, and he didn't appear to carry any. It appears to be safe, Your Highness. One soldier reported to the pretender Euphemia. Then this way, please. The imposter directed Zero to the G1 mobile base. Princess Euphemia, it might be too dangerous to be alone with him. Suzaku said. As your knight, I request that you allow me to accompany you to safety. No, it's all right. Please, just trust me, Suzaku. With that, the false Euphemia led Zero toward the mobile base, while Suzaku cast a concerning glance towards Dreadwing, who felt equally concerned. Meanwhile, in the forested area outside the stadium, several Black Knight nightmares, including the Gurren Mk2, the Gekka pre-production, the Gekkas owned by Toto and the Four Holy Swords, and many other Beret, laid in hiding and waiting. Command was deferred to Ogi after Optimus and Zero explained the situation. I hate this. Colin voiced her thoughts aloud. It's like we're just waiting for something terrible to happen and we don't even know what it is. Come on, what's the worst that can happen? Tamaki questioned. You really wanna ask something like that? Knowing what the Berts and Khans are capable of. Rai responded, as he anxiously gripped the controls of his nightmare. Optimus and Zero told us to be on standby in case something happens. Ogi said. Besides, the Autobots are all down there, and they got the Immobilizer and Polarity Gauntlet. I doubt even the Knights of the Round can fight against that. Even so, we have to remain cautious. Toto informed everyone. We've all learned by now, especially when it comes to the Decepticons, to expect the unexpected. This made Colin even more tense as she knew her mother was also down there. Granted, RC and Cliffjumper were there too, along with Lelouch and the other bots, and she trusted them to protect her. But that didn't make her any less nervous. Within the mobile base's control room, Zero shut down the cameras so that they could have the utmost of privacy. Is there something wrong, Zero? Pretender Euphemia asked. That right there, she addressed him as Zero, and not by Lelouch, despite the cameras being turned off. That was enough to confirm that something was indeed wrong with Euphemia. He couldn't be suspecting us, could he? Starscream questioned. We took the utmost of precautions, and Schneisel even aided in covering our tracks with Britannia. There is no way he could be aware of something, could he? Megatron, however, felt something was off. He and Optimus were with Euphemia on Kaname Island. Lelouch could have revealed his identity to her. But did he? Without knowing the details of their relationship, it's almost impossible to tell. If I were to say his name, it could confirm my knowledge of his actions. Why exactly did you request to speak with me? Megatron asked as Soundwave continued to sync him to the Pretender drone. I've prepared the special administrative zone for you and Optimus. Pretender Euphemia spoke as Zero turned to face her. If I have done something to displease you, there's only one way for me to know if something is truly wrong with her. Lelouch thought to himself. Before arriving to the zone, he had his contact lenses removed. With his mask on, he wouldn't have to worry about it going out of control. However, he also was aware of CC's warnings that even using it this once could cause it to become permanently active. But with so many lives in potential danger, he could afford the risk. Forgive me, Euphy. Lelouch activated his Geass as the slit in his mask opened and he made eye contact. 8 years ago, you and my sister got into a fight. Why? This may have also risked his identity being exposed, but he had to ask a question that only Euphemia could answer. What is he talking about? Starscream asked. He's using his Geass. Megatron's own optics widened in surprise before they narrowed. Clever boy. Lelouch's eyes widened beneath the mask as his Geass deactivated. She didn't respond. I know I've never used my Geass on her before, and the responses are always instantaneous. Underneath the mask, Lelouch glared at the individual he now knew to be an imposter. You're not Euphemia. Suddenly, the pretender's right arm extended and grabbed Zero by the throat before extending even further to lift him into the air and pin him to the wall. Upon seeing the metallic attachments underneath the skin of the extended arm, his eyes widened even more. Cybertronian. It's just like with Makeshift. What are you? Zero exclaimed as he struggled in the pretender's grip. A special type of mini-con. A chuckle escaped the pretender's mouth as it spoke in a voice that was not Euphy's, but one that Lelouch could recognize in a heartbeat. Not exactly. Megatron. A pleasure to finally meet you, Zero. Megatron spoke through the pretender as it smirked evilly. You've caused me quite the headache along with Optimus since your appearance. But no longer. Where is the real Euphemia? Zero growled, his eyes narrowing furiously underneath his mask. If I were you, I'd be less concerned about that one human, and more concerned with the thousands that are outside. Megatron said before the pretenders swung Lelouch across the room to slam him against the wall on the other side before it quickly made its way toward the exit. No. Lelouch thought in dread as he tried to pick himself up just as the pretender left. Suzaku, who had stood outside the G1 to be safe, was surprised to see Euphemia exit the base so quickly. Princess Euphemia. That was rather faster, you. He was suddenly cut off by an electric shock to his abdomen from the pretender's left arm that converted into a taser-like weapon. It didn't kill him but was enough to knock him unconscious. Consider that your discharge from the Decepticons, Suzaku Kururugi. Megatron thought as pretender Euphemia made her way back to the stage to put the rest of the plan into motion. Quickly getting up, Zero was quick to access his comms as he tried to run outside and catch up with the machine posing as his half-sister. Optimus. Evacuate the zone. Now. Lelouch. What is? Optimus asked over the comms as the other Autobots looked to their leader with concern before accessing the comms themselves to listen in. That is not Euphy. It's a fake. We're being set up by Megatron. Lelouch told Optimus, and indirectly the other Autobots, much to each of their shock. Call a ground bridge and evacuate the zone now. The other Autobots saw that Euphemia was already on stage and they all had a sinking feeling what was about to happen. Ratchet. Prepare the evacuation. Optimus contacted the Ark as the Autobots tried to run toward the stage and stop what was to come, much to the surprise of the Japanese citizens and Britannian soldiers. What is going on? Dreadwing wondered as he and several Britannian nightmares tried to block the Autobots' path as Darlton looked toward Euphemia in surprise. Princess Euphemia, where is Zero? And Kururugi? He tried to ask the imposter, but it was already too late. Megatron's malevolent smile only grew. With this, I rise, and Britannia falls. Zero ran out just in time to see the pretender Euphemia's arm convert into an energon blaster, which it shot into the crowd. A group of 6 of the frontmost spectators were blown away by the explosion, much to everyone's horror. With that one act, all time appeared to have stopped for virtually everyone. For Lelouch, Optimus, Dreadwing, Bumblebee, Nonette, RC, Gino, Cliffjumper, Darlton, Bulkhead, Monica, Wheeljack, Kirihara, Ironhide, even Mrs. Kazuki, and every single Japanese citizen looked in absolute horror, and that was only the start. With a woman's scream, pretender Euphemia's other arm converted into another blaster and resumed fire into the crowd. Princess Euphemia. Stop this at once. Darlton tried to stop the pretender, but it quickly turned around to deliver a backslap to send him crashing toward the side and knock him unconscious, much to the nobles' shock before resuming the massacre. Suddenly, Bismarck's Galahad received an emergency communication, which appeared to be from the Emperor. Knight of 1. These are your orders. Terminate Ever 11 you see. Leave no survivors. But your majesty, why would? There's no time for explanations. Charles exclaimed. Kill the 11s. Now. As you wish. Bismarck nodded before taking command. Attention all soldiers, terminate the 11s. Leave no survivors. What? Nonette exclaimed as even Gino and Monica were beyond shocked. About damn time. I was getting sick of playing nice. Luciano smirked as he drove the Percival into the fray along with all the Britannian military Sutherlands and opened fire into the stands to kill more people. There is no time for explanations. Kill the 11s. Now. Soundwave played the recording that he tuned to match Charles's voice for this specific moment, revealing it was actually him who gave the order, not the Emperor. Starscream chuckled. For someone so quiet, you have quite the dramatic flair, Soundwave. Send a squadron of our Viacon soldiers to aid them. Megatron ordered. We need to be part of this tragedy as well, do we not? He mused with a sneer. By the Allspark, Ratchet looked in absolute horror at what was being played on the screen of the Ark's bridge. Shirley covered her mouth as her eyes widened with terror. Sayoko wasn't that far behind either, and neither was Fix-It. Nunnally, though she couldn't see, had heard what was going on and was aware of what's happening. What? Why is? Nunnally stuttered as she couldn't even think of a reason this was happening. Well, this is something, Rakshata said as she seemed somewhat disturbed by this as well. We have to evacuate them. Sayoko was the first to regain her senses. We need to pull all those people out. Now. Ratchet quickly regained focus. Of course, Fix-It, prepared to open multiple ground bridges. Already on it. Fix-It was at the console. Schneisel had seen what was happening as well. He shot up from his chair as he saw the massacre unfold before his eyes, his face contorted with shock, clearly not expecting this. Was this your plan, Megatron? Back at the stadium, Suzaku had regained consciousness as he looked in absolute horror at what was occurring. It looked like absolute chaos. The Autobots were doing their best to fight off the Britannian nightmares that were opening fire onto the civilians as multiple ground bridge portals began to open up. But despite their best efforts, the bloodied bodies of men, women, and children were seen everywhere. Come on! Bulkhead exclaimed to a group of civilians. Everyone into the portal. He and Wheeljack covered the people's escape into the portal as they opened fire onto a group of nightmares. Do not them escape. 7 Sutherlands tried to rush in and stop them, but they would soon find their way barred by Optimus Prime. You will not hurt these people. The Autobot leader exclaimed. Filthy abomination. They tried to gun him down, but Optimus was quick to draw his new battle axe and deliver a circular swing to cut all 7 of them in half in one stroke. Ironhide also provided cover fire to allow Kirihara to lead multiple Japanese children into a ground bridge portal as well, his targets being the Mordred, Galatian, and Florence, though Nonette inside had a look of pure terror on her face as she dodged the energon blasts. This isn't supposed to be happening. The Knight of 9 thought in shock. Genos Tristian also stood there as the Knight of 3 looked in pure horror as he saw the dead and dying bodies of the people below his nightmare. No, this isn't right. Even Monica looked in horror as she dodged the Autobot fire with her nightmare. This isn't justice, this is insanity. Suzaku even saw some of the other Knights of the Round fighting against the Autobots as well. Bumblebee had used the Polarity Gauntlet to blast back 4 Sutherlands before using the device to act as a force field to block the missiles from the Percival's shield. RC used the immobilizer in her left hand to freeze several nightmares and cover Cliffjumper, who was helping people to escape. But there were still countless people that couldn't be saved as they laid dead on the ground and in the stands, blood stained virtually everywhere. What is happening? How? Suzaku stuttered before the Palamedes suddenly rolled up in front of him. Princess Euphemia opened fire into the crowd. Dorothea's voice spoke through the nightmare's speakers. What? Suzaku exclaimed. No, that's absurd. She would never. The Emperor also gave orders to terminate the 11s. Dorothea continued. And you're an 11, aren't you, Kururugi? The Palamedes aimed its arm-mounted gun at him, only to have Dreadwing suddenly swoop in with his sword and cut off the Nightmare's arm. What? Dreadwing, what are you? Dorothea didn't get a chance to finish as Dreadwing grabbed the Nightmare by the shoulders and used his own strength to throw it toward the mobile base, causing the Palamedes to crash into the control room. Dreadwing. What? How is this happening? Suzaku stuttered. Did Princess Euphemia? I don't know. Dreadwing replied. Though he saw her, or someone who looked like Euphy, attack the crowd, he knew that she would never do anything like this. But I intend to find out. Let's get to the Avalon. You'll probably need the Lancelot. Suzaku's expression became firm as he clenched his fists. All right. Dreadwing quickly picked him up and transformed into his vehicle mode to fly away from the slaughter for the moment. Back on the battlefield, Mrs. Kazuki had ran into a little boy who was crying over the dead bodies of his parents when a Sutherland suddenly rolled up to them. Mrs. Kazuki tried to cover the boy with her body, but the Sutherland was quickly frozen by a blast of the immobilizer, courtesy of RC, who quickly ran up to grab the woman and the boy before running toward the nearest ground bridge portal as Cliffjumper continued to cover her. "Go. You'll be safe on the other side," RC told the two of them. Wait, I have a daughter." Mrs. Kazuki tried to tell the fembot. "She was supposed to meet me here but I can't find her. Leave it to me, just go. I promise your daughter is safe," RC said. "Now get going." Though Mrs. Kazuki couldn't explain it, there was something familiar about this Autobot. Granted, she had seen her and the others on the news before, but something else made her feel like that she actually knew her from somewhere. And this feeling was enough to make her trust the Autobot as she nodded and helped the child into the ground bridge portal, before RC turned around and tried to save as many more people as she could. Bumblebee used the improvised magnetic force field of the Polarity Gauntlet to knock away the Harkins from the Percival before the Nightmare quickly rolled directly at Bumblebee, its right claw-like weapon converting into something of an energy drill which it tried to burrow into Bumblebee, who used the Polarity Gauntlet's force field to push it back, but the Percival kept pressing. "Here's a question for you, Autobot," Luciano began. "What do people value the most?" "Here's the answer: their own lives. Can the same be said for you?" Bumblebee's optics narrowed before he purposely deactivated the gauntlet, letting Luciano lose control of his Nightmare's momentum, and allowing Bumblebee to deliver a powerful punch to its face and knock it back. With the Knight of 10 momentarily off balance, Bumblebee reactivated the gauntlet to send the Percival crashing to the far end of the stadium where there was nobody else around. Bulkhead brought his mace down onto a Sutherland to crush it as Wheeljack cut another one down and the two came back to cover more people escaping. However, an explosion erupted underneath their feet to knock them down. The wreckers looked in surprise to see the Mordred floating above them. However, what they did not notice was that Anya inside the Mordred had a pair of red rings in her eyes as she even smiled and spoke in a tone that was not her own. "I'm not sure what Charles has to gain from this," Anya voiced aloud, "but he has my complete trust. So, I'll play along." The Mordred opened fire with its shoulder-mounted Varus cannons, forcing Bulkhead and Wheeljack to split apart and avoid the blasts. "Keep moving, everyone into the portals." Optimus held his axe as he continued to direct the last of the survivors into one of the ground bridge portals. However, he spotted a series of Harkins shot his way, which he was quick to slice and bat away with his axe. He looked upward to see the Galahad as the attacker. "Optimus Prime," Bismarck Waldstein acknowledged. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Is this your Emperor's doing?" Optimus questioned with a glare. "Did he and Megatron orchestrate this madness?" "I'm not entitled to answer that," Bismarck said as the Galahad drew its massive Master Vibration sword. "All you need be concerned with is your own life, rather than these insects." The Galahad shot straight toward Optimus as it swung the sword at the Prime, who blocked the strike with his axe. At the same time, the real Euphemia screamed underneath her gag as she was forced to watch what could only be described as a nightmare unfold before her eyes. She tried to turn away and close her eyes to avoid seeing the carnage. "Oh, don't look away now," Arachnid taunted as she held the girl's head and forced Euphemia to look directly at the screen. "The fun is only beginning." Arachnid's taunting laugh was the only company for Euphemia's horror-filled eyes. Meanwhile, Zero had got back into the Gawain's cockpit with CC as the massive nightmare began to ascend toward the sky and the three of them could only look in horror as they saw the fight and massacre unfold before their eyes. Even CC was visibly disturbed by this. Megatron, Lelouch took off his mask to reveal the look of disgust and rage that filled his being. All she wanted was to help people, and this is his response. He uses my sister's face to start a massacre. The Britannians didn't even hesitate to join in on the slaughter. I swear, if it's the last thing I do, Megatron will pay. CC looked with concern towards Lelouch as she saw the hate in his eyes. Before she had a chance to say anything however, an alarm sounded on the Gawain's systems and she looked on the radar. Oh no, multiple Decepticon signals are closing in around Stadium. They're coming. Of course, they are. Lelouch said in a hateful scoff. At their master's bidding. The Decepticons are coming, Guilford exclaimed as he and Darlton saw their signals on the radar screen approaching the stadium. It seems so, Bartley said. I have to say, I did not expect this from Princess Euphemia. She never seemed like the type to do something like this. She wouldn't, Guilford stated. I know her. She never even picked up a gun once in her life. She would never. He turned around to try and see how Cornelia would respond, only to find that she was no longer present. Cornelia was already in her custom Gloucester as she put the ignition key in. I don't know what's going on, but I'm coming for you, Euphy. She started up her nightmare and drove it out of her mobile base and directly toward the stadium, despite the distance. I swear I won't let you down again. What is going on down there? Colin exclaimed in fear as she and her fellow Black Knights could see the smoke even from their location. This is Zero addressing all Black Knights. Their leader's voice reached all the Nightmare units on standby. The SAZ was a trap. Princess Euphemia has been replaced by an android created by Megatron to start a massacre. What? Rai exclaimed in shock and horror. The Autobots have evacuated most of the survivors and are engaging the Knights of the Round. Zero continued. But the Decepticons are inbound. Here are your orders. Protect the people. Wipe out any Britannian and Decepticon military forces you see. Hurry. Multiple explosions erupted outside the stadium as the people around it tried to clear out as most of the Autobots all drove out toward the streets to get some space now that all the survivors of the zone had been evacuated to the Ark. Though it pained them all that they couldn't save everyone, they still had to save all they could because there were countless people outside as well. Optimus slid out of the smoke on his feet, his axe in his hand as he quickly recovered to block the sword strike from the Galahad that flew directly toward him. Optimus, the Decepticons are here. Ratchet contacted him right as a small army of airborne Viacons flew toward the stadium and began to open fire on the area around it, causing explosions that would kill several more bystanders. However, Optimus also glanced upward to see the Gawain opening fire with its Hadron cannons to obliterate at least 15 airborne Viacons before the rest had already transformed and began to target civilians directly. Is this what it means to be a Knight of Britannia? Optimus exclaimed as he continued to lock his axe against the Galahad's sword. Countless people are dying, and you are more focused on fighting me. I have explicit orders from the Emperor to see your destruction, Optimus Prime. Bismarck replied. Everything else is second priority. Optimus narrowed his optics at that remark and would have pressed forward had Ironhide not suddenly drove in with his vehicle mode to transform and deliver a punch to the Galahad and send it crashing to the ground, though it quickly recovered and faced the two Autobots. I've got your back, Optimus. Ironhide stated. No, Optimus quickly said. Help the others fend off the Decepticons and protect the humans. I will deal with the Knight of One. Though reluctant at first, Ironhide trusted his leader and nodded. Understood. He then transformed to rejoin his comrades as Optimus faced the Galahad alone. So, I see you've chosen to accept my challenge. Bismarck smirked. I trust my friends and allies to protect the people. Optimus replied. If this is what it takes to keep you from ending more innocent lives, then so be it. Optimus ran at the Galahad as it shot directly at Optimus in return to collide their respective weapons again. Meanwhile, around the stadium, Bulkhead drove around in his vehicle mode to avoid the Varus blasts from the hovering Mordred before he transformed and fired at the bulky Nightmare, which actually flew down to ram into Bulkhead and knock him down, though he was quick to get back up and deal a blow to its face with his club to knock it back. What's up with this kid? Bulkhead thought to himself. This isn't how she normally fights. It's like someone else is behind the wheel. At the same time, Wheeljack and Cliffjumper both engaged a squad of Viacons as the Wrecker drew his swords to run and cut down 3 troopers while Cliffjumper opened fire with his Energon blasters to destroy the others. RC and Bumblebee also found themselves back to back as multiple Britannian Sutherlands and Viacons surrounded them with their weapons. Wait, hold your fire. Geno's Tristian hovered over the group. This isn't right. This isn't how we do things. Sorry, but we got orders from a little higher up the ladder. One Viacon stated. Kill them both. He and the other Cons and Sutherlands were about to open fire, when suddenly, a storm of magnesium bullets tore through the enemy forces as one of many squads of Black Knights had arrived, this particular group led by Colin in the Gurren as she came in and made short work of the enemy forces. Gino, though shocked by this, quickly flew back to avoid getting shot himself as the Gurren made its way to the Autobots. RC, where's my mom? Colin exclaimed in a panic. She was in the zone. Where is she? She's fine, RC assured. Your mother is in the Ark with the other survivors. She's all right. Colin felt a great deal of relief from this. Thank God, however, it was quickly replaced with sheer anger. Did the cons really do this? RC had a glare of her own. Yeah, this was definitely Megatron's handiwork. The Gurren's pilot clenched the controls of her nightmare with pure rage. Damn that monster. With that she, RC, Bumblebee, and their squad of Black Knights moved in to clear out the enemy forces. As the other Black Knights came in and regrouped with their Autobot allies, they were quick to turn the tide against the Britannians and Decepticons. Tamaki led a squad of his own along with Chiba and Urabe to back up Bulkhead and drive the Mordred back. Asahina and Senba rolled up in their Geass and used their swords to cut down the Sutherlands and Viacons that attempted to shoot down more civilians before providing assistance to Cliffjumper and Wheeljack as they shot their respective ammunition to the nearby Florence as Monica tried to pull her nightmare back and avoid getting shot. Even Ogi drove his Barai with a squad of his own to provide backup for Ironhide and gun down a group of Viacons. All the while, Ogi could not contain the hate he was feeling right now. How dare you! Trampling over the hopes of our people. Megatron. Damn humans. One Viacon exclaimed as he and 4 others opened fire on the custom Gekka piloted by Toto. Now I see, you were planning this all along. Toto exclaimed as his nightmare drew its sword, and he was quick to maneuver around the energon blasts from the Viacon squadron before he quickly moved in to cut down all 5 of them with little effort. Rai roared in fury as he shot his Gekka Surger claw into the face of one Viacon. You damn monsters, he exclaimed as he activated the Surger, causing the Viacon to explode. Kaiserin. Rai turned his focus on the Galician that approached him. No net, did you do this? He exclaimed as he reached out with the Surger claw again to grab the Galician by its head. Did you do this? Did you help Megatron start this? No, I didn't, No net exclaimed. None of us did. Kaiserin, please you know me. Don't call me that. Rai exclaimed. I'm not a Britannian prince. I'm a Black Knight. And you're a Britannian soldier, just like all these other monsters, so give me a reason why I shouldn't end you. There was no response from the Galician at first, until the cockpit opened up and Nonette stood up, allowing Rai to see the pleading and sorrowful face of the Knight of Nine, and he was even more shocked to see tears flowing down her eyes. I would never do this. Nonette stuttered as Rai continued to listen to her pleas. Kaiserin, or whatever you want to call yourself, you truly know me, do you really think I would do something so horrible? Hearing her words, made Rai think back to his childhood where Nonette looked after him, his sister, and his mother. He had always admired and respected her, and even considered her to be part of his family. That was right, he did know her. She was a good person, and she would never do anything like this. As his face clenched with so many mixed emotions, he withdrew his Geass Surger claw to release the Galician. Get out of here, he told her as he turned his nightmare away. But, she tried to reach out toward him. Just go, Rai exclaimed as he rejoined the battle, leaving the Knight of Nine alone with a feeling of disgrace and failure hanging over her head. The Ark, the Britannian and Decepticon forces are on the run. Fix-It reported. And all people from the stadium have been safely transported to the Ark. Several medical Black Knights are seeing to it they receive the proper attention. Those who survived, you mean, Ratchet said gravely, causing Fix-It, as well as Nunnally, Sayoko, and Shirley to look down in shame and sorrow, knowing that they couldn't save everyone. Where is Suzaku? Nunnally asked. I don't have his location, but it's reason to believe that he is there. Fix-It assumed. Then send me there, too. Nunnally stated, much to everyone's shock. Nunnally. Shirley did not expect that. Absolutely not. Ratchet exclaimed. The Decepticons and Britannians may be repelled, but that sight is far too dangerous, especially to a girl that can't even see or walk. You are not a Black Knight. She might not be, but I am. Sayoko stated as she put a hand on the girl's shoulder. Lady Nunnally, is it safe to assume that you are going to look for Suzaku? Yes, Nunnally answered. If he knows what happened to Euphemia, he might finally leave the Decepticons and come with us. But it's too dangerous, Fix-It stated. That's right, you're not going out there Nunnally, Shirley said before she smiled. Without me. What? Ratchet exclaimed. I'm no soldier, but I'm a Black Knight too. Shirley said. I want to help Lelouch and Suzaku as much as I can. I can help look after Nunnally and convince Suzaku to help us. If his friends are willing to talk to him, he'll listen. She looked up to Ratchet, who seemed ready to protest. I know I'm not a fighter, but what's the point of me being here if I can't help my friends? I promise Sayoko and I can keep Nunnally safe. We won't let anyone hurt her. Your resolve can't act as a shield if you three are bridged into a war zone without a proper escort. Ratchet stated, but when he saw the firm expressions in their eyes, and even with Nunnally despite her eyes being permanently closed, this seemed enough to waver his own resolve a bit. And you need not look any further than the Autobot standing before you. That had Shirley and Nunnally share smiles with each other, as even Sayoko had a smile of her own. Besides, even if I said no, you three would have probably snuck off on your own anyway. He then turned to only Minicon present. Man the ground bridge, fix it. Let us know when you see the Lancelot's signal and open a portal to its location. Understood. Fix it nodded. The Lancelot was launched from the Avalon and flew with its float system, alongside Dreadwing in his vehicle mode right beside him. Yuffie, where are you? Suzaku exclaimed in a panic as he and Dreadwing flew back into the war zone around the stadium. Princess Cornelia. Guilford tried to contact her. Don't act irrationally. We need you too. She turned off her nightmare's communication, however. Yuffie. Cornelia called out for her sister as her Gloucester neared the area as well. The Gawaine's Hadron fired onto the ground to obliterate a group of enemy Viacons and Sutherland's right as he was soon contacted by Bumblebee. Lelouch, I've got eyes on the fake on Yuffie. The Autobot scout reported. She's 4 kilometers from my position. I'd get to her, but my hands are full. Understood. Lelouch gritted his teeth as he piloted the Gawain to that location, with CC still looking at him with concern. The pretender Euphemia had long since walked out of the stadium and had been placed on an autopilot state by Soundwave long since the massacre started. Its only desire was to kill every human it saw. However, it didn't get much farther as the Gawain hovered directly over it. Less than a second later, Lelouch hatefully opened fire with the slash Harken on the Gawain's right finger to tear the pretender in half. Suzaku's pupils shrunk the second he saw that. Even Dreadwing was caught off guard. Though Cornelia wasn't as close as everyone else, the screen on her Gloucester had shown her what had happened as her face went pale. NNOOOO. Suzaku exclaimed as he shot the Lancelot directly at the Gawain to kick it down to the ground, shaking Lelouch and CC inside. Suzaku's face was filled with pure hate and ire as he aimed his Varus rifle directly at the Gawain, ready to obliterate it and the pilots inside. Zero. You're finished. Don't do it, Suzaku. An ambulance suddenly arrived and came in between the Lancelot and downed Gawain. Don't shoot him. Suzaku's anger vanished as he recognized that voice. What? Nunnally. The doors opened as Nunnally was wheeled out of the ambulance with Sayoko guiding her wheelchair, and Shirley also quickly came out before the ambulance transformed to reveal Ratchet. CC also looked in surprise to see them there as well, but none were more shocked, or even terrified than Lelouch as he could not believe his own disabled sister was out here as well. Cornelia even saw this from her Gloucester as well, her own eyes widened like dinner plates as she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Nunnally. However, from her location, nobody would even notice the Gloucester. Dreadwing himself transformed as Ratchet stood protectively in front of the 3 human females as he was more than shocked to see the girl as well. Though he was aware of Nunnally v Britannia and the relationship she had with Suzaku, he did not expect her to be in the company of a Black Knight female and an Autobot. Suzaku. Don't do it. Lelouch is in there. Nunnally cried out. Nobody was prepared for that. Suzaku, Dreadwing, and Cornelia from her unseen point, none of them could believe what they just heard as they saw the cockpit of the Gawain open up to not only reveal CC, but also Lelouch, clad in the uniform of Zero as he had an unreadable expression on his face. Optimus sliced his axe towards the Galahad as it blocked the strike with its sword, before the Galahad attempted to slice at Optimus, who blocked it with his own weapon before the Prime's left hand converted into his ion cannon to fire at the Galahad as Bismarck pulled back, using the float system to fly into the air while also activating the blaze luminous shield to protect himself from the fire. The Knight of One smirked as this was honestly the most fun he had ever had in a battle. He honestly hadn't this much excitement since his last duel with Marianne. However, before he could continue to fight, Knight of One, retreat. The voice of Charles Z. Britannia, or rather Soundwave mimicking his voice again, contacted him. But Your Highness, Optimus Prime is right in front of me. I can finish him right now. Bismarck protested. Another time. Most of the forces in this area have been wiped out, the other knights are retreating. Fall back and report to Schneisel. I am deferring command to him. Understood. Bismarck accepted reluctantly before addressing the Autobot leader. Optimus Prime, we'll have to resume our duel for later. The Galahad flew away, leaving Optimus alone as he put his axe away. Optimus, the Britannian forces have begun to retreat and most of the Decepticons have been neutralized. Fix-It contacted his leader. However, Ratchet has left the Ark, along with Sayoko, Shirley, and Nunnally. They are with Lelouch and CC, along with Suzaku and Dreadwing. Suzaku had to exit the Lancelot just to make sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. Not only did he see Nunnally and Sayoko in the middle of this madness, along with an Autobot, and even Shirley in a Black Knight uniform, but clad in the attire of the masked revolutionary named Zero, was the person he considered his friend, Lelouch v Britannia, or rather Lelouch Lamperouge, with CC right by his side. Dreadwing wasn't as emotionally shocked as Suzaku, but he clearly did not expect the masked Zero to be a Prince of Britannia. From her point, Cornelia looked in clear emotional shock through her Glasgow's screen as she saw the face of her half-brother in the attire of her enemy. Was Lelouch really Zero all this time? And why was Nunnally here too? Lelouch. Suzaku stuttered. Hello Suzaku. He acknowledged before he turned to his sister and the other two young women. What in the world you all doing out here? Nunnally, you were supposed to be in the Ark. Lelouch, I couldn't just sit by while you, Suzaku, and everyone else were out here. Nunnally exclaimed. We asked Ratchet to bring us here. Shirley said. What? Lelouch fixed his glare up to the Autobot medic who looked with some form of shame. Don't blame him, my lord. Sayoko told Lelouch. We convinced him to take us. He even tried to stop us. However, before Lelouch could say anything else, Suzaku voiced his jumbled and chaotic thoughts aloud. Why, Shirley, you're a Black Knight. First Colin, then Rai, now you. Shirley looked down in partial shame before Suzaku gave a hateful glare at Lelouch. What did you do? What did you do to bring them into this madness? He's been trying to protect us, Suzaku. Nunnally tried to tell him. Everything Lelouch and Optimus have been doing is to help people. Help, help, Suzaku exclaimed in anger. Nunnally, how can you say that after everything that's going on right now? We had nothing to do with this. Lelouch exclaimed. This was not our doing. You killed Yuffie. Suzaku was ready to pull out his pistol and shoot him right then and there. That is not Euphemia, Lelouch shouted back as he pointed behind Suzaku. The honorary Britannian turned around to see something that made him gasp in horror. It looked as if Euphemia had been torn in half, but a closer look indicated that it was not Euphemia, but rather a machine that looked like her. Metallic parts were scattered everywhere, as opposed to vital organs, and in the absence of blood there was energon. I knew it, Dreadwing stated, though he did not expect something like this. He knew that the real Euphemia could never have been responsible for such chaos. She would never let anything like that happen. Glad to see one of you has a sense of reason. Ratchet commented. Cornelia could also see it. Her screen zoomed in to see that it was not truly her younger sister that had been torn apart, but a machine. What? Suzaku slowly walked toward the destroyed pretender that bore the face of someone he respected, maybe even loved. He fell on his knees as he, with shaky hands, reached out to hold the face of the pretender, his knight attire already covered in blue stains of spilled energon, his face and eyes shaking as an emotional storm raged deep inside him. It's a robot. Shirley looked in surprise. It would seem so. Ratchet confirmed, much like with Makeshift. It was Megatron, Lelouch stated, causing Dreadwing to look at the young revolutionary with a shocked expression. His fists clenched underneath his robe. He set this all up. And he used her face to do it. But, Lelouch, where's the real Yuffie? Nunnally asked, a feeling of sick worry for her elder half-sister forming inside her. I don't know, Lelouch confessed, feeling just as worried for her if not more so. Cornelia clenched the controls of her nightmare as she heard every word that was spoken. Megatron replaced her sister, used her to start a massacre. With rage and hatred swelling inside her, she pulled on the controls of her Gloster and left the area with only one thing in mind: revenge. Dreadwing continued to stare down at Suzaku, who continued to hold the remains of the pretender Yuffie in his arms. The more he thought about it, the more he knew that Megatron was the only one responsible for this. Did he do it? Dreadwing spoke to Ratchet in particular. Did Megatron doom our planet? Did he poison Cybertron with the blood of Unicron? Yes, he did, Ratchet confirmed. And Optimus did everything he could to save it, but not even he could undo the damage Megatron did. That was it. That was the same thing Euphemia had also told him, and the more he considered the idea of Megatron poisoning the planet's core, the more he realized that something like this would be child's play for the Decepticon leader, but that did little to deter the fury that had grown exponentially within him, up to the point that he yelled straight into the sky in a state of pure ire. Euphemia was someone he truly respected and considered a friend. How dare Megatron do this to her? Dreadwing then made a silent vow that if his former leader did anything to Yuffie, if she was no longer alive, he would kill Megatron without a moment of hesitation. Suzaku, however, appeared to be in a state of mental instability as he tried to put all his jumbled and emotional thoughts together. I allowed myself to be deceived by Megatron. It was a mistake to join him. It was a mistake to even listen to a word he said. This rebellion and all this violence is wrong, or is that just what I wanted to believe? But, then that means, no. I can't, they can't be right about all of this. If they were right, and I was wrong, no. I can't be wrong. I just can't be. This is your fault. Suzaku turned toward Lelouch's Nunnally, Ratchet, Sayoko, and Shirley looked in shock over what he had just said. Even Dreadwing did not expect that. CC glared at Suzaku while Lelouch simply let Suzaku continue. If you and the Autobots hadn't fought Britannia, then the Decepticons wouldn't have gotten involved, and none of this would be happening. This wasn't his fault, Suzaku. Shirley quickly ran to him. He didn't ask Megatron to replace Euphemia. Megatron is the bad guy, not him. Suzaku didn't appear to be listening as he simply pushed Shirley out of his way and glared even harder at Lelouch. Why didn't you just work with Britannia? Why did you have to fight them? Suzaku. Nunnally was about to talk to him, but when Suzaku turned with a glare towards her, Sayoko and CC were quick to stand in front of the disabled girl if he tried anything. That's not why you're upset. Lelouch began as Suzaku turned his glare back to him. You're not mad at me, or any of them, you're mad at yourself for not protecting Yuffie. But I shouldn't be surprised, considering that's how you've always been. What? Suzaku exclaimed in anger. This is what you've always done from the beginning, Suzaku. Ever since I met you again in Shinjuku. Lelouch stated, his voice slowly raising. You always look for someone or something else to blame for what happened. It's so much easier to blame someone else than yourself, isn't it? Exclamation mark. But I don't expect anything less from someone who's already given up. That's all you've ever done, Suzaku. You've given up. You gave up on your father. You gave up on Japan. You gave up on your friends. You even gave up on me, Nunnally and Euphemia. You gave up on everything and everyone. The only thing you've ever wanted was to die so you wouldn't have to live with the guilt that you've tried to ignore all these years, because you felt it was the easiest thing to do. Suzaku didn't expect Lelouch to say all that, and he tried his best to find a retort. No, you're wrong. I don't have to listen to damn thing you say. He yelled. You don't understand. You could never understand. Oh, I think I do. Lelouch exclaimed as he grabbed Suzaku by the collar and pulled him close to his anger-filled face. You want to know why the Autobots and Black Knights all fight? Exclamation mark. It's because of horrors and atrocities just like this. Lelouch gestured to the ruins of the war zone, as well as all the dead bodies around them before he pressed Suzaku against the right leg of the Lancelot. The Decepticons turned their own planet into a lifeless husk. Britannia destroyed entire nations and subjugated them to slavery. Look around you, Suzaku. Megatron started a massacre and used Euphemia's face to do it. The Britannians didn't even hesitate to jump on the bandwagon and join the slaughter. That's why we've been fighting. Those people, those monsters, Megatron, my father. They are pure evil. And you would sooner subjugate countless people to that evil and kill yourself so that you don't have to bear the responsibility. You would rather end your own life than admit you were wrong. Lelouch, Nunnally tried to say something, but Sayoko put a hand on her shoulder, giving her the silent message to let her brother continue. Shirley cast a glance to CC as well as Ratchet as they both thought the same thing. Even Dreadwing chose to remain silent as a part of him actually agreed with what Lelouch had just said, some of it even applied to himself as well. But, that's not, Suzaku stuttered, but Lelouch wasn't done yet. And now, even after all that, you're still blaming others. Quote. The former prince exclaimed. Just because you've made mistakes that you don't think you can fix, that doesn't permit you to run away and lock yourself in the darkness, pretending ignorant of all the people that you helped to hurt. Are you really going to take that attitude with you, Fee? Britannia is probably going to use her image as propaganda to further their own cause. Are you going to just sit there and let that happen? If you're really her knight, you should be doing everything to save her. And if you can't save her life, then save her name. See to it that the world doesn't view her as murderer. That's what I'm going to do. But what about you? Maybe you made mistakes, and maybe some people won't forgive you for them, but you still have to stand your ground without making excuses for yourself. You owe that to everyone who was hurt because of you. Suzaku looked at Lelouch, almost as if he was speaking a foreign language, and yet at the same time, every word made perfect sense. His mind was in such a contradictory, that he wasn't sure how to respond, but his current emotional state had him leaning a bit toward his darker side. Why are always doing this? Suzaku stuttered. Ever since that night, you've always tried to get me to change my mind. Why can't you just let me be? Why can't you just let me die? Suzaku practically screamed as he punched Lelouch in the face. Nunnally and Shirley gave audible gasps once they heard what Suzaku just said. Sayoko and CC both looked ready to attack Suzaku at a moment's notice, but Lelouch held out his hand to get them to stop as he didn't budge an inch, despite Suzaku's fist making contact with his face. Ratchet and Dreadwing both said nothing, but looked with tense expressions, wondering just how Lelouch would respond to what Suzaku told him. Because I'm the same as you, Suzaku. Lelouch told him, causing Suzaku to look at him in honest surprise. I've been dead before. Ever since I was a kid, I've been dead inside, just going through the motions of life. And I've made mistakes too. Some of those mistakes ended up hurting people that I've cared about. He cast a brief glance towards Shirley in particular before giving his attention to Suzaku. But despite everything that's happened, I had people come into my life, wanting nothing more but to help me. Even after the mistakes I've made, they never gave up on me. Optimus never gave up on me, and neither did Nunnally, even after learning I was zero. And because of that, Lelouch grabbed the wrist of the hand that Suzaku punched him with and lowered it away from his face. I won't give up on you either. Never once, in 1,000 years, did Suzaku honestly expect Lelouch to say something like that. You've made mistakes, and I've seen multiple times, just how close you were to falling into darkness. Lelouch continued. But I won't let you do that. I won't you fall. Do you want to know why? Because you're my friend, Suzaku. That earned an honest gasp from the Japanese youth. You're my friend, the first I ever had, and I don't want to lose you. Please, let me help you. I want to help you. Lelouch let him go as Suzaku stumbled back, his mind trying to process everything that Lelouch had just told him. Before anyone could say anything else, however, the vehicle mode of Optimus quickly made its way to the group before he transformed and walked forward. He looked towards Ratchet the instant he saw Shirley, Sayoko, and especially Nunnally out in the open like this. I assume full responsibility for this. Ratchet told his leader and friend. I came here to provide my own protection for them. Only because we insisted, Shirley quickly said. This was our idea, Optimus. Nunnally and I wanted to come here because of, well, she gestured to Suzaku who had fallen on his hands and knees. Optimus, though disappointed, did understand their reasoning. We will discuss this later. He told them before acknowledging Dreadwing's presence. Suzaku almost didn't even notice Optimus' arrival as so many conflicted thoughts continued to jumble around his head. Despite everything he did, everything bad things Suzaku had done, Lelouch called him his friend and wanted to help him. He almost couldn't believe it. His eyes closed so tightly, it looked like his eyelids might tear as his breathing became ragged. However, he soon felt a gentle touch on his cheek, one he knew all too well, as he looked up in minor surprise to see the smiling Nunnally, with Sayoko at her wheelchair. "Do you remember what I said 7 years ago, Suzaku?" Nunnally asked. "How a warm touch is good for tears." "But, I'm not crying," Suzaku stuttered, oblivious to the fact that his eyes were already beginning to water. "I know, you've done many bad things, Suzaku," Nunnally began. "But you are not a bad person. Megatron is the real monster, he tried to make you into something you're not. He twisted your heart, mind, and soul so much that it makes me cry just thinking about what he tried to do to you. But, I know you can be something better. Big Brother wants to help you, Optimus wants to help you, Shirley wants to help you, I want to help you. Let us help you, let us help put your wings back together so you can be the angel you were before." That was it, that was what made the dam break as tears fell down Suzaku's eyes and he openly cried, burying his face into Nunnally's shoulder as she pulled him into an embrace with a warm smile, tears of joy of her own as she stroked his back for comfort. Even Lelouch and Shirley walked up as they each put their hands on his shoulders. Cece gave something of an impressed smirk, not that she was happy about Suzaku, but more so proud of how Lelouch and Nunnally were able to pull their friend out of their darkness. She shared a smile with Sayoko who seemed equally proud of him. Optimus and Ratchet shared proud smiles of their own before looking toward Dreadwing who maintained a calm expression, one that carried neither anger nor happiness. The moment was soon interrupted by the arrival of the remaining Autobots, as well as the Nightmares piloted by Colin, Rai, Toto, and Ogi. They all pointed their weapons at Dreadwing the moment they saw him. "Drop your weapon, Khan!" Bulkhead exclaimed as he primed his Energon blaster. "Hands where we can see them." Colin also stated as the Gurren Surger claw was pointed to the back of Dreadwing's head. Rai however quickly noticed the presence of two certain girls. "What the? Nunnally. Surely." He got out of his Geass cockpit. "What the hell are you two doing out here?" "It's okay, Rai," Lelouch told him. "Everything's fine." Toto also noticed Suzaku's presence but based on how he was still with Nunnally, it looked like he wasn't about to cause any trouble. He then turned his attention toward the Prime. "Optimus. All enemy forces have either been destroyed or retreated. The Black Knights are working to tend to the wounded as Fix-It is opening ground bridges to the Ark." "Understood." Optimus nodded in acknowledgement. "I want to join you." Everyone turned their attention toward Dreadwing as most couldn't contain their looks of surprise. "What?" Ogi questioned in anger. "Nice try, Dread Boy." Wheeljack glared. "It's no trick," Dreadwing stated as he walked toward Optimus, all the Autobots and Black Knights keeping their weapons primed on him. "Don't take one step closer," RC warned. "Stand down," Ratchet told everyone present as Dreadwing faced the leader of the Autobots. "I wish to join the Autobots." The Seeker began. "I can no longer be part of the Decepticon cause, now that I understand its true colors. I was only a fool to ever think otherwise. Finally figured that out, huh?" Cliffjumper commented. "I understand that my actions will not allow many of you to trust me." Dreadwing acknowledged. "But I cannot and will not allow any of this slaughter to continue. So please." He bowed his head to Optimus. "Let me help you in stopping this madness." Optimus could tell that Dreadwing was sincere, and he was right about not everyone trusting him right away. However, Optimus did trust him, and knew that if Dreadwing said he wished to help them, he meant it. Very well. Optimus accepted. Though most of the Autobots and Black Knights were reluctant, they lowered their weapons, deciding to trust their leader's judgment. Lelouch even nodded in acceptance, knowing they could use Dreadwing's help. But he still had one other thing to attend to. He looked toward the man he called his friend as Shirley and Nunnally helped him to stand on his 2 feet. "Well Suzaku, what are you going to do?" Lelouch asked as Suzaku turned his attention toward the young prince turned revolutionary. "If you come with us, you'll undoubtedly face some resentment from those in our group, but right now, these people need all the help they can get. The Decepticons in Britannia are not going to stop with just the special zone. The people of Japan see you as a ray of hope, just as they see myself, the Autobots, and the Black Knights, as their saviors. And with everything that just happened, they need all the hope we can give them. But if you can't find it within yourself to join us, I understand. It's your choice. Everyone, bot and human, looked at Suzaku with mixed expressions. Though Lelouch, Shirley, Nunnally, and even Optimus had hopeful expressions Suzaku would make the right choice, Colin, Ironhide, and RC were among those who were doubtful. Bumblebee, Ratchet, Wheeljack, Ogi, Bulkhead, Cliffjumper, CC, and Sayoko had more neutral expressions than anything else. Toto, Dreadwing, and Rai, however, despite the apparent stoic expressions on all their faces, there was something inside them that was praying for Suzaku to do the right thing. Suzaku reached into his pocket to pull out the Decepticon pin that he still had for some reason. Why he still carried that, not even he knew. But the second he looked at it, his face twisted in disgust and anger, now that he knew what the Decepticons truly are, now that he knew Megatron for the monster that he is. He clenched the pin in his hands before turning around and throwing it away as hard as he could. I'm in. And this is the end of part 16 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.